Hey, movie munchers, you're listening to the second episode of Don't Spill the Popcorn.
My name is Dillon.
And I'm Joe.
And we're two independent filmmakers who have worked together many years, here to bring you honest, critical, and enjoyable movie reviews on exclusively new films only.
You can currently reach us with any comments, concerns, or corrections at don'tspillthepopcorn@gmail.com or on our Facebook and Instagram pages.
Today, we are talking about the new film and a spin-off of the Saw franchise, Spiral. We're going to start with the non-spoiler sections, and then we will move into a spoiler section, but we will give you a warning first. So stick around, and if you haven't seen the film by the time that we get to the spoilers, shut it off and go check the film out and come back and join us for the rest, or just, keep listening and ruin the movie for yourself.
The choice is yours.
But I suggest always watching the movie first. And now comes the news.
Hello again, everyone. Thank you for coming back. If you were around for our first episode, and if you're around for the first time, hello there. Thank you for coming on by. Dylan and I appreciate you for stopping on by and taking a little bit of time out of your day to come hang out with us and listen to us rant and rave about all of the newest, gooeyest films that are coming out at the moment. So, like Dylan said, we're going to be starting you off with some news here. Ryan Reynolds teases Deadpool 3 ? Pretty recently, Ryan Reynolds posted a picture on his story. Did you see anything about this? Have you seen anything?
I didn't. That's why I'm pretty curious on what you have to say about this. I'd like to know.
It's just one of those things where like something tiny happens and people just kind of take it and run with it. I don't know how big of a deal this is because, as we all know, Ryan Reynolds is he likes to treat his fans like a cat treats a ball of yarn. Like he just really likes to play with people and likes to mess with them and likes to kind of leave his fans sitting on their toes, kind of wondering like, is the thing that I want going to happen or not?
Yeah, but do you think he would actually do that, though? Like, when it comes to the actual film? Because that, if it didn't happen, that would just make people upset then.
Apparently, there's been reports of him doing this a few times in the past. I can't give you specific examples, but I can say for sure that I have a few examples of people saying that he has played games like this before. So he posted a picture of a bag on a coffee table with just a bunch of random shit that you would just see in somebody's house. But sticking out of the bag is the Deadpool face mask.
So this is definitely intentional. It wasn't like an accidental situation.
Oh, it was very intentional. Yeah. He posted this picture and it was just a few bags sitting on a coffee table. And there it was, the Deadpool mask just peeking right out of the bag there. And apparently from what I had seen, usually when you post something to your story, it lasts 24 hours, but apparently he removed the photo from his story before that 24 hours was up. So I'm wondering what it was behind that. Like maybe he just threw out a quick little teaser actually for people to see.
He got in trouble.
Or that's what I was going to say, or he got in a little bit of trouble, because I'm sure that he is definitely the kind of person who in some instances feels like he can have wiggle room to do what he wants when the people who are juggling like doing the PR and making sure that everything's locked tight until any information can be released, I'm sure that those people are on top of his ass.
Don't think that actors like him don't have a little bit of wiggle room. They're just going to get a slap on the wrist and say, don't do it again, and here's why.
Yeah.
And then they don't normally do it again because, you don't want to spoil it.
Yep. And that's funny too, because my whole life I always thought that actors could pretty much just do whatever they want. You know what I mean? Like I always just imagine them just kicking their feet up. They're the ones that are yelling and telling people what to do all the time. And to an extent, that is true, but there's a lot of people that are up and down the totem pole as far as that whole industry is concerned that I wasn't aware of at the time either.
Yeah, for sure.
So as much as there might be people that actors are kind of poking and prodding at, there's definitely so many people that are on a whole new spectrum above them that are telling them, where they stand, because those are the people that are signing those checks.
Exactly. I mean, the money talks, man.
Yeah, no doubt. So the only other update that I have in regards to this, besides his little sneaky, hey, here's a potential teaser, there was reported from Marvel Studios, President Kevin Feige said that that there actually is going to be a third installment coming up. It will be rated R. They're working on the script. Ryan is actually overseeing the script right now. He actually shared this earlier in the year, this year in 2021. They did definitely mention, though, that it will not be filming this year. And then he just goes out of his way to compliment Ryan by saying he's busy and successful. And I do agree with one point that he makes, that he does say that Ryan is a force of nature, which is just awesome to see him bring that character to life, which, I mean, who can't possibly agree more with that? I mean, he just knocked it out of the park. We want to completely forget that Green Lantern even existed because of what Deadpool has brought for us here. So I think that that's pretty awesome. I am stoked about all that.
He's great. That's definitely sure. He fills that part. It wouldn't be Deadpool without Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. It's almost so good that it arguably Deadpool is Ryan Reynolds opposed to Ryan Reynolds being Deadpool.
Amen, sister.
Continuing on with the news, Dungeons and Dragons. That's right, people. I said Dungeons and Dragons. And originally, I didn't think that I would be pulling from anything that would be going or would be happening later in the future. This is going to be in 2023 that this actually will be happening. So this is quite a little bit of time from now. But I just think because of all the hype that's actually behind Dungeons and Dragons, and how many people actually love that game and how big of a deal that it's been and how massive and ingenious the game actually is, I thought that it was pretty neat that someone was actually finally, after all these years, saying, I'm going to make a film, especially in an age where effects and cameras and the potential, I guess, to sum it all up into one word, the potential of this movie now is greater than it could have ever been, before this time.
I don't think it's not going to be an easy film to make. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons. I just know that there's so much that is involved. How do you make a story out of something like that? So they have a lot of work to do. So they best be ready for it because they're going to be busy.
It's going to be directed by Jonathan Goldstein. Is that a name that's familiar to you?
I feel like I've heard his name before.
But the other, I guess there was two directors. John Francis Daly was the other one. That sounds strangely familiar. He was also a criminal. He was the criminal profiler Dr. Lance Sweets on the crime drama series Bones, which I know is pretty popular.
That is a popular show. I remember seeing a few of those episodes. I never actually was like a diehard fan or anything like that. I just remember seeing some clips from it and stuff throughout the years.
So those are a couple names that are attached to Dungeons and Dragons that we can be looking forward to, that I'm sure if you haven't heard about it yet, you have now, and I'm sure that something in you is probably excited, knowing even the tiniest bit of Dungeons and Dragons. We're going to have one hell of a sci-fi kind of fantasy movie coming our way that's probably going to be action-packed, and I'm hoping that they just give it that rated R stamp right out of the gate and say, you know what, we're going to make this raunchy and realistic.
That's the best way. An R rating is a happy rating.
Last piece of news from me, Mr. Dillon Pickle Huffman is nice and simple, being Joker 2 is in development. We are getting a Joker 2. As much as some people seem to think that they were going to leave it off at 1, and other people, which I would probably say it was split in half. There was definitely a very noticeable amount of people that said, no, I think that this was enough, and I think that they could leave it there, and that's where I wanted to stay. And then there's the other people that said, no, they obviously set it up for 2. So guess what? First people, 2's happening, whether you like it or not, and I actually think that it was necessary. And I was wondering if you happen to think that you would have liked to see a Joker 2 after seeing that first film.
It's actually a really good question because I never even thought twice about a Joker 2 until you just said right now that they're making it. And it was like so highly regarded. It's almost strange that they went with a Joker 2. And in the sense that usually Academy Awards, stuff like that, like they don't usually go with sequels and stuff like that because that kind of ruins them. But me personally, I love content. I love movies. Even if they're not even great movies, I still love them because I love watching them. So I say, let's, sequels all the way, and if you don't like it, don't watch it. That's just like remakes and originals. If you don't like it, don't watch it. The only time I don't like things like that is when they're like, for example, like a remake, when there's more story to be told within the original like series of the films, and then they just decide, hey, it's ready for a remake. Yeah, I don't like that.
So, Dillon, I'm going to throw it on over to you. What news do you got for me?
Evil Dead Rise. That filming has begun in New Zealand, and I was not aware until just recently, today, when I say recent, I mean today, recently that the previous films, they're not connected to the previous films. Like it's its own thing, which I don't know how I feel about it, if I like it or not. I personally was ready for a sequel to the remake because that remake was absolutely amazing. It was dark, gritty, scary, gory. To this day, it still holds up, and I think it's one of the top remakes. I still love the original, don't get me wrong, but they did amazing. And I was just hoping for a sequel to that, and I just hope that Evil Dead Rise can at least get close to where, I think they're probably going to go more goofy like the original but I don't know for certain because I didn't do a lot of research on the Evil Dead Rise. And as well, they are making a game as well, an Evil Dead game that should be out sometime soonish.
Man, these producers these days, they have an idea and they're just trying to milk it out into everything that they possibly can.
Just like TV shows, and like they'll make movies and TV shows at the same time now. It's insane. So, Evil Dead, the game, is an upcoming video game developed by Saber Interactive, Boss Team Games, and Lionsgate Games, set for release on PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S. I'm sorry, I don't know Xbox stuff that much. Nintendo Switch and PC sometime in 2021. We don't know, but the stuff that I have seen plays very well to the original films, and it looks really good, and it's multiplayer, I believe, and I can't wait. I'm super excited for this. That's why I'm actually trying not to learn too much about it, because when it happens, I just want to just experience it all at once. Second part of my news section, a crew of 5 on the new Indiana Jones film got a little spook when filming in a haunted Bamberg castle in Britain. Rumored to be haunted by the Pink Lady, who committed suicide when her father informed her that her true love had married another.
Whoa.
Aside from the ghost, it's good news for the British film industry, who hasn't had a big film production in 18 months. And this could help with the financial burdens with the coronavirus and everything. So ghost or not, the show must go on. The film is scheduled to arrive July 29th, 2022.
Nice. That's so funny that they're like, well, regardless to how creepy or scary or haunted that this is, we need this. Listen, buddy, we need this.
You would be... We all need this. And apparently they really needed it thanks to the coronavirus, but I'm glad that they're finally getting the moolah. But you'd be very surprised on the amount of films, like movies and TV shows, that deal with paranormal while filming. Like, so many times I hear stories about stuff like that, and it's insane. I mean, even I didn't go there, but on Mindhunter, there's a location that is supposedly really haunted. I don't think that anything really happened with them while they were there. I mean, maybe everyone had their own like separate stories, but yeah, it's just there. You always go into so many different places where you film, so you have the like a huge chance of just running into something paranormal, if that's what you believe in.
I really wanted to bring this up mostly because I thought that this was something that's up your alley. Like, I saw this and immediately thought of you because for some reason I don't think about these kind of things very often. So when it actually comes up where people who are working on a film are actually getting spooked by something that's going on the set, I felt like that's something that you've looked into before, or things that you've heard about, or something that excites you. And I think that that is really cool because I don't usually see articles like that where it's saying like some sort of cast or crew that's involved in filming a movie actually gets, because like you said, people do get put into a lot of random places that, they scope out, to be able to be fitting for these movies. And, who knows what's real and what's not, and who knows, what has been there or what's happened, just like they said, what, the Pink Lady, what happened to her, who knows if, there is that grieving spirit that's still lingering there that's doing that. And, them saying that they've experienced it, and then, people going and backing them up and being like, oh, well, that makes sense because of this. And that just makes it that much more bone-chilling to me.
Well, what's even more bone-chilling is, like I said, the film business has had much history with the paranormal, and some of the biggest films, like The Conjuring, Poltergeist, The Exorcist, like things have actually happened with, and I think it's, I guess, because not even necessarily where they're filming, but like the actual content of what they're filming, and somehow like they've had like a couple people die from the Poltergeist, even the little girl and stuff, and it's just like a lot of mysterious things that have happened throughout all these different films, and then afterwards, or even in pre-pro, like writing the scripts, like what directors or writers have said about these situations, like coming up with scratches or this and that. Like it's insane. Whether you, like I said, whether you believe it or not, it's insane.
So spooky.
Let's not make a paranormal film next, Joe. They might come haunt us.
No, thank you. No, thank you. I can't have anything holding me back from finishing up these edits. So that's cool about the whole spooky haunted house stuff going on there. I thought that was super neat. And thank you for sharing the tidbit of information that you had there, especially because that's one thing that I like about doing this news section is, it just inspires random thoughts about things like that we can talk about. So I enjoy that a lot about this section. There's a few things now that we need to roll into to our follow-up section that I brought up in the last episode, which is something that might kind of be happening more regularly as our episodes continue. There's definitely going to be spoilers in this from the last review that we just did, so you have been warned. Right off the top here, we have Tig Notaro was added to the entire movie in post. And when I say in post, I'm talking about later. After they were done on all the sets, taking all of the shots, filming everything, getting everything all ready, they filmed her in later on. And the couple pictures that I saw made that especially obvious with her being on the same set, but the lighting was different or the time of day was different, and you can tell the sun isn't hitting on her the same way that it was hitting on Batista. And and a bunch of different things like that. But the reason for that being is that the original person who played Peters was actually Chris D'Elia, who is actually a comedian that for many years I enjoyed very deeply. I thought was very funny, had a very different, strong, sassy, sarcastic, but kind of goofy and whimsical kind of, I guess I like this whimsical thing about people, just this whimsicalness about people.
Nothing wrong there.
I thought that he was pretty funny and a super cool guy. But it turns out that after filming with him, there were a lot of things that popped up about sexual grooming and harassment with minors. And for several women came forward and said, hey, when I was a minor, there was this grooming or this sexual harassment going on with Chris D'Elia. And so when they heard that, they shut that down immediately. They were like, okay, how do we get this douche out of this movie?
I can't imagine.
Last minute, they figured out how to place her into every picture, every promotion photo, every shot, every scene that she was in. And I mean, it was very obvious that for the most part she was quarantined with the helicopter for the majority of the movie. She wasn't around very much, or whatever she was around in. She wasn't with other people, and when she was, now that someone mentioned it, it does kind of look like she was never actually there. Like she almost kind of felt like she was there in spirit. And you can kind of notice that in pictures when you look too. You can kind of see that she's faded a little differently than other people, where the lighting is just a little off from everybody else. You can tell when you look through. But I think that that's good on them. I think that's good on them because that's not somebody that they should be promoting. That's not a person that they should be giving money to. That's not someone that they should be allowing to work in the industry. And there's hundreds of them that are just being, not exposed. So I give mad kudos to Zack Snyder and that team for doing, jumping over those hurdles to make sure that he had nothing to do with it.
I only just heard about her being added in just today from your notes, actually. And so I started doing some research, and that is incredible. That they did do that to make sure that he was not in the film because he doesn't deserve to be. But it's just the way they did it. I would have never guessed. I didn't know. I had no idea. And I watched some actual visual effects behind the scenes and stuff. And they showed the process of where nobody was there and adding her into that stuff and showing the green screen and stuff. And she said she has never even met Dave Bautista. She's never even met him. That's what's insane to me. She just killed it too. She's one of the actresses that stuck out to me in this film because she was funny, and she really delivered, especially for actually not being there for any of it. And I know you said you could tell, but even with the video and stuff looking back, I could barely tell. They did so well at adding her in, and it's almost that makes me question every film now of what's the littlest thing that they've changed that I had no idea, and I'm like, holy shit. So very, very impressed with them for that, and makes me appreciate the film that much more. I can't believe that we forgot and never talked about Guzman's death.
I know. I know. We totally skipped over it completely. Do you know what distracted us? Robot zombie face. That's when that robot zombie got shot right before he died. And we were so hung up on talking about that total mindfuck, that total conundrum, that we completely forgot about Guzman even dying. Which, it wasn't the most, honestly, it probably was, the most boring death. So I'm not super sad that we missed it. But what did you think about it? What do you want to say now that we didn't get to say because we forgot to mention it?
I'll just be real quick, I guess. Like you said, it is probably one of the most boring deaths out of all the characters, but I do appreciate that, again, he blew up too to try to save all the other ones, and man, did he blow up. That was a big explosion. And that's really it. I had that whole scene there in that casino when everyone's fighting and shooting, and it did suck that he died because I liked him, but hey, everyone dies.
And speaking of Guzman, he had that YouTube channel kind of thing going on in the movie there. And I just so happened to accidentally stumble upon on YouTube that they have all of the footage that was cut from the movie that they didn't use, of all the different things that they could have possibly used of him screwing around making videos for that YouTube channel. And I actually thought, because the quality was still up to par and they still had the same kind of gory shittiness to it, and they kind of kept, you know what I mean? It was up with how the rest of the movie was done. So because of that, I actually got hooked into watching a good chunk of it, and I wanted to bring it up because if you did see the movie and you kind of thought that would be cool to see if that was an actual YouTube channel, kind of during a mini quarantined apocalypse kind of thing, it's out there and you can watch it. And I definitely wanted to point that out, especially even for you to be able to go see too. I should have had you see it before we talked about it.
I did watch it.
You did watch it. Nice. Did you like it?
It was good. I liked it. I was actually really surprised that they didn't even have 200,000 views on that when I watched it.
I know. I thought that would have been a huge hit.
I was a little upset, actually, a little disappointed. But
Yeah, it should have been trending.
maybe
So
it'll
good.
trend. Maybe it'll trend. Because it is good.
So anything personal going on with you right now? Anything new that's come up since we spoke last time?
I just released Don't FWD, Don't Forward, for the 10-year anniversary. It's about almost an hour-long film that I made in high school. It is not perfect. There's lots of things that can be wrong with it, but it's always fun, and I'm really amazed with some of the things that we had to work with back then and be able to use a school and stuff like that. And so I was like, it's been 10 years since the film came out, and it's been 10 years since we graduated high school. So I'm like, it's literally to the day. Let's re-release it in its whole piece, because usually back in the day, YouTube made you cut it down into chunks because it was too long. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to re-release it. That's what I did.
Nice, tasty remaster. And upload it in all one slew.
I actually just watched that today. I just watched it today while I was working out, because I didn't rewatch it after doing it, which I probably should have. But all I did was, I'm like, I'm going to actually watch it. And I had a good time. I actually messaged Morgan, our main actress in it. And I just wanted to, see how she was doing, because I haven't heard from her in a while and I missed her. So how about you?
What's going on with me right now? Well, I did follow through and I did stream The Village. I did do it. I'm sorry, I did neglect to tell you when I did end up doing it, so you did miss out. That is very sad.
I know, you jerk. I seen it. I was like, oh, no.
So I did forget to tell you, but oh my God, it was so hectic getting everything set up and ready, because it's the first time I've done it in a long time, and I had nerves, and I haven't done anything that was live in a while. So, just kind of being on the spot, and potentially you never know who's coming up. So I did have kind of nerves about doing it, but I got it all set up. Everything looked really good. The only thing that was wrong is, since I don't have curtains in my living room, there's a street light that comes in my room, and it came up on the top right corner of my mattress that was holding my screen, and you could kind of see the blue, like the fuzziness coming through that.
But it wasn't that bad.
No, but besides that, it actually came through pretty flawlessly. So I know that I was saying before that it was going to be kind of gritty and shitty, but it actually turned out a lot better than I thought. And the game, I was like almost instantly regretting that I decided that that's what I was going to play. Like practically instantly regretted it.
I knew you would be.
I'm like, I can't believe, but that's the thing though, Dillon, is that's the only way I'm ever going to play one of those games, is if I literally put myself in a situation where I feel obligated to continue playing it. Is if I'm like, okay, I'm going to commit to doing the thing, and here I am doing the thing and getting the shit scared out of myself. But, I guess in a funny way, yeah, right. But in a funny way, that's also, I guess, I try to look at it as entertainment for other people, kind of seeing me be a little crybaby about getting through this game, because boy.
So you better finish it now.
It is creepy. So if you do want to come on by, just stop by youtube.com/blumsvoyage. I am streaming The Village right now. I don't have a super duper schedule, but if you follow me on Instagram at blumsvoyage, you'll be able to see I post usually at least 5 hours before I'm going to go up for streaming for the night. So follow me on there, check me out. Other than that, I don't got a single thing going on, Dillon.
All right. Well, it sounds like that's some cool shit, and I can't wait to actually watch it live and not the recorded version, because I love watching you play live games, because it is fun to watch you, especially because I've already played it first, so then I get to see your reaction and compare it to mine, and it's always exciting. So yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, I appreciate you for stopping by, man. You definitely, over the pandemic, supported me a lot when I started my streaming out. And I had the pleasure of streaming with you a few times too. Doing the Friday the 13th and Killing Floor, that was actually some good times, dude. I enjoyed that a lot. And there's some funny content on those videos for sure.
Just a little something for the corrections department. I said on the last episode of Army of the Dead, we were talking about like cameras and how they got the look of Las Vegas and recreating it. And we talked about, well, what I said was an LIDAR scanner. And I knew what it was, and my dumbass said LIDAR instead of it actually being pronounced LIDAR. So you can take off some brownie points for that one. But just to give you a little idea of what it is, a LiDAR scanner is like a machine that determines like the ranges by targeting like objects with like a laser and measuring the time that it takes for the light to reflect back to the actual receiver. And then it creates like a cool 3D image. Some of them are different. I think some of them are kind of ghostly. Some of them have more of a texture look to it. So that's what a LiDAR scanner is. Well, I think it's about that time to let everyone hear the movie trailer for Spiral.
Jigsaw copycat. This is gonna go sideways fast.
Spin like a spiral.
All available units, officer down.
That was just a diversion to get us out of the precinct.
Spiral.
I need everyone on this case. He could be anywhere. He could be anyone. We're gonna tear this city apart.
I'ma let him spin like a spiral.
Hello, Detective Banks. When was the last time you saw your father?
Welcome to the spoiler-free section. Here I'm going to give you a brief description from IMDb. Working in the shadow of his father, an esteemed police veteran, brash detective Zeke Banks and his rookie partner take the charge of a grisly investigation into murders that are eerily reminiscent of the city's gruesome past. Unwittingly, entrapped in a deepening mystery, Zeke finds himself at the center of the killer's morbid game. Categorized under the crime, horror, mystery, and thriller genres, this rated R Lionsgate film, being the 9th installment to the Saw collection directed by Darren Lynn Bossman thus far, has pulled together a 5.4 out of 10 on IMDb, a 37% on Rotten Tomatoes, and 40% on Metacritic. And just with those numbers alone, you know, if we're just looking at the numbers solely, we're diving into watching a movie that is apparently half as good, or at least nearly half as good as the one that we had just reviewed. And we already felt like that was a half good movie to begin with. So we're talking about getting into a movie that's about a quarter of what we would like a great movie to be, which almost seems like a waste of time, which made me hesitant because there was a paywall for this movie. With the last one, I suppose that there was a paywall, but it was a lot more accessible because most people already kind of have Netflix going on in their homes. So I really went out on a leap here saying, you know what? I'm going to give this movie a chance and say that it is worth giving it a shot. One 5-star review said, Saw is back! Spiral is by far the strongest entry to the franchise since the original trilogy. Fantastic cast, insane traps, great twist, and an awesome soundtrack.
A 1-star review said, like a childish high school play. Wow. Aside from the okay gore scenes, this movie is so unbelievably bad. Awful acting, extremely shallow characters, unnatural interaction among them, and everything is so immensely chewed out, as if they tried to make everything super easy to understand for an audience like Dillon Hoffman. An audience with an IQ under 75. Make them feel smart.
Did this movie make you feel like you were a very smart boy?
Some of the main faces in this film are Chris Rock, who played Marty the zebra on Madagascar, Caretaker in The Longest Yard, Maze Gilliam in House of State, and now Detective Zeke Banks. Max Minghella played Nick on Handmaid's Tale TV show, Divya on The Social Network, Ben Harper on The Ides of March, and now Detective William Shank. Samuel L. Jackson played Jules Winfield on Pulp Fiction, Major Marquise Warren on The Hateful Eight, Nick Fury in the Marvel series, Neville Flynn on Snakes on Plane, and now Marcus Banks.
And looking at that list of actors right there alone already had me pretty pumped about watching the film. I really love Chris Rock. I absolutely love Samuel L. Jackson. And with these names, makes me feel comfortable because we already got two heavy-hitting names of people that I feel comfortable with already seeing. And most of the time, sometimes a lot of movies that I pick are kind of based around who I'm already used to seeing on TV. So I feel like for me and for a lot of other people, this set of main faces on this film is a pretty comfortable walk-in to watching this movie. Getting into the news about this specific movie, according to Boseman, the director, a scene featuring a trap had to be completely cut from the film due to it being too gnarly.
I want to see it now.
At any point, I know, right? Because I already felt like there was a whole bunch of gnarly going on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Going into watching this movie, since I did these notes before I watched the movie, I had thought that the one that I did see was the one that I wasn't going to see. So I was actually sitting there thinking, yep, this is the one. I'm not going to see any. I'm seeing it. They're doing it. I'm seeing it. And it really it was gross. And
I can't wait to know which one that
freaked
is.
Me out. Yeah. So you don't already have any pre-assumptions as to what that specific one is. Oh, that's cool. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's my only contribution for the news for this movie.
Well, my contribution to the news for this movie, Lionsgate Television chairman Kevin Beggs announced that Lionsgate TV is in early talks to develop a television series based on Spiral.
Ding, 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 ding. There it is. There it is again.
Exactly. To me, I don't know. I feel like everything is getting a TV, like even Child's Play is getting a TV series. Scream had a TV series. They talked about trying to get, Friday 13th. It's just, there's so many horror movie spinoffs, and they can't do in a TV show what they can do in a movie. Now they can develop a more story base, yes. But I don't know. As long as you don't stop making the movies, I guess, like that's my biggest thing. Like I don't want to replace a movie with a TV show because I appreciate films more than I do TV shows. Don't get me wrong, I like both, but I gravitate towards filming, like films rather than an actual show about it.
Director Darren Lynn Boseman, who, guess what, Dillon, is also a Full Sail University alumni. So you're kind of like homies.
I don't think we're homies. That'd be cool, but I don't think we're homies. But it is, I did have an inkling, but I did forget until I looked him up again and realized that we shared the same classes. Not the same at the same time, but I wish, but same place.
So you're alumni homies.
Yes.
He has been active since 2000. He's best known for directing 4 of the Saw films. The other 3 being Saw 2, 3, and 4. I haven't seen any of the Saw movies.
I don't know what to tell you for that one. I'll have to help you out with the rest of like the details wherever I can.
One thing that made me decide to feel okay with going into this movie was that I had read a lot of comments saying that there actually weren't that many pullbacks into the Saw series from this movie. Not that I would know even after seeing it, but that is what I had read. And honestly, I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything or anything was really confusing about what was going on, if it had anything to do with shit that had happened in the previous Saw movies. He directed the horror musicals Repo, the Genetic Opera, and the Devil's Carnival movies. That sounds interesting. I'm definitely looking into those. And even more interesting yet, Boseman is co-creator and writer of alternate reality games and immersive experiences. And for people who have never heard of things like this before, and there's actually a theme park out there that's kind of revolved around this, where there's this world that there are actors everywhere that are immersed into this land that you physically paid to go in and become a character. And there's things happening all over the place. And depending on what you get into or where you are at a specific time, a quest could land on your lap and you could decide to do the quest or not do the quest. And everything's always changing around you and people somehow know about you even though you've never talked to them before. And there's just all these things that happen that it's like a real video game. And apparently this director is a co-creator and writer for experiences like that, where people go in to be a part of something that other actual people are there being the characters for that experience.
Sounds like the start of a horror movie.
Yes, stuff like that is completely mind-blowing, and I really hope to experience something like that one day.
The budget for this film was $20 million, and they made about $30.5 million at the box office. And I did not realize this until recently either, but originally the film was called The Organ Donor and not Spiral. But Spiral was leaked back in January, and there's really no information on the internet right now. I tried to look, but there's not really saying much of why they changed the name. And I'm assuming that the name actually could have been like a working title, like just to kind of keep it hush hush. So it might have never really been intended to actually be the real title. And if it was, it could have gotten the reason why is some of the content within the film. That's why they were going to call it that. But I'm so glad that they changed it to Spiral because it's such a better name than The Organ Donor.
Yeah, I'm thinking that too, because I couldn't see any other reason as to why the film would be named that, other than to just kind of keep it under wraps until it was time to be like, hey,
yeah,
this is happening.
I feel like that's what happened.
So I feel like I'm sure that's kind of a common thing to happen with productions that are trying to keep things extra hush.
Yeah. You really get it, because people dig. People can really find stuff out. Like Scream, all the Scream films, Scream 5's doing it now too, where everyone just wants to know every detail. They're doing so much research. And so movies like that have to keep things so hush hush.
So to end the basic info section on this movie, Dylan, I just have one question for you that fans of the Saw series has been crying out to the mountains is, should Saw have a complete and total reboot where this movie left it off?
I mean, this film itself is kind of like a reboot because you don't really, it's like a whole nother direction of where the original films went. And even them, they all kind of, they're all connected very closely, but they all started going in different feelings and different directions, especially compared to the original Saw film. So I feel like they're doing it now. I don't know if my opinion, just do it, but do it right. So should they do another one? I don't know. We'll find out in my my general thoughts.
Yeah, and I suppose with you saying that, because I have absolutely no comment on that whatsoever, going into my general thoughts, I would say that I guess I thought that this was going to be slightly interesting, which was another reason why I decided to go through with your suggestion as well, was because you are familiar for the most part with the series as far as I know, and I am not familiar at all. So my perspective on a lot of things that happened might be a lot different from your perspective, just depending on, anything that has to do with anything that's happened in the series before. And like I said, there's a good chance that maybe there wasn't that much or nothing at all. And I'm looking forward to hearing that from you. So getting into my general thoughts, I would say that for the most part, I enjoyed the movie. There were some things that I felt like I was getting forced into. Like, I felt like I was being forced into seeing the same kind of things come to light in the same way once again that so many movies have done it in different genres, but they just it felt like they pulled from those movies and pulled it into this genre and tried to use the popularity of how that film worked because of its roadmap into the roadmap that they were making for this new spinoff of these kind of horror thriller films. And those things turn me off big time. I've seen them happen so many times. I've seen a lot of the things that they did happen so many times. I wasn't nearly as disappointed with it or the things that I saw as much as other people. And truthfully, I would probably say that I wouldn't necessarily recommend this movie to anyone, but because there were a lot of things about it that I personally liked, I will watch it again. So all in all, I think that it, from my point of view, is a fair movie.
My thoughts before we get to the spoiler section. So I'm more leaning towards the 1-star review with what they had to say. But I would say in the sense that the traps and the gore in this film and the traps are amazing. I think the gore in this film, if you have a weak stomach, it seriously is probably one of the most realistic gore that I've seen in a film.
I wasn't ready for that.
No.
I really wasn't ready for that.
And that's honestly, in my opinion, the only thing that holds this film at all to me, really, because I did not like the acting. I just can't see Chris Rock playing this character. All I kept on thinking the whole time, like especially like when when you start to hear his voice, I'm just waiting for, like, I see the title of Spiral come up, and I'm just like, well, they must have missed that because this is supposed to be Madagascar, right? Like, it's not supposed to be Spiral. So I'm waiting for that joke to happen, and it never happened. And then even Samuel Jackson, I love him, but I think his acting in this was just so. And it just looked very cheap. Looked like you could tell the sets and stuff like that. So like I said, I think the only thing that I really, really liked from this film was the traps, and even them, they were only, like, I was expecting more traps. I compared to some of the other Saw films, this didn't have a lot, more than the first, but didn't have a lot. And I would say that I don't need to watch it again. I would watch the trap parts again, maybe, but as far as the film itself, there's some okay moments, but mostly I'm a good pass on this one.
There you go. There you have it there. To respond to you quickly, I was definitely disappointed with Chris Rock's acting. I think that it felt like it almost felt like he didn't practice, and all of those were his first takes of ever doing it. Like, they had somebody else, and they were like, who's somebody that we can get to do this? And they bring in Chris Rock, and they hand him the script, and they're like, okay, and we're filming in 3, 2, and then off he goes, and that's pretty much what they put together in the edit. For Samuel L. Jackson, though, I give him a little bit more credit because I feel like he made the best out of what he had to work with. I still enjoyed him, but I was like, damn, that's a shame that he said yes, because it drew people in to see him, just to see him do a mediocre role that would have been probably better suited for somebody else instead of somebody who is, you know what I mean, just so high on that food chain as far as how astute he is in the acting community. Mm-hmm. So I just didn't think it was I don't think that it was the role was meant for him. I think that, there was just things about him that just made me glad he was there, because I just love the guy. He's just funny, and I just everybody loves a good motherfucker from him. You know what I mean? He could say that.
He said it.
Oh yeah, he did. Like, I think it was 3 times, and that's almost what I showed up for too. Because I just knew that they were going to do it. It's a rated R horror film. Why wouldn't Samuel L. Jackson say motherfucker? So, so that's awesome. And other than that, I think that wraps up my thoughts on on the my responses on the actors that you just the last couple things that you had to say there. I just had some thoughts that I forgot to mention before you went off there.
So now that we've kind of gave our general thoughts, we're going to get into the spoiler section where we're going to break things down even further and maybe talk about the actors a little bit more and definitely about everything else that this film has to offer or not to offer. And so if you have not seen the film yet, I suggest you pausing this, go watch the film, and when you're done, come back and join us and listen to the rest, because this is where it actually gets super interesting, and this is going to be Joe and Dillon's moment
to shine. And boom, just like that, here we are at the spoiler section where everything goes and everyone knows. Right off at the top of the movie, I immediately noticed, because I've never seen this before, the Twisted Pictures graphic that they did. I don't know if this is something that they include in any of their other movies that they've done.
They do.
But I love it. I wasn't sure if they just created it or if it's been around for a while, but those like barbed wire chains or whatever they were that like pull against the font, the title, and it just like rips it apart and it's bleeding and stuff. That's really neat. I appreciate that. I usually
very, very cool production video.
Yes. Yeah. What other is there anything that they do outside of the Saw series?
So Twisted Pictures, aside from the Saw films, they've done films like Dead Silence, which is directed by James Wan, the same guy who also made the original Saw. Also the guy that made Conjuring film. Like, I don't know how many of them, but a handful. Catacombs, Vlog, Repo the Genetic Opera, The Tortured, Catch Hell, Heavenhurst, and the rest of them are all Saw films.
I have not heard of any of those. How about you?
Dead Silence I've watched. I've never watched Repo the Genetic Opera, but I've definitely heard a lot about it. This very, it's like one of those, it's like a cult kind of felt like not cult. What was it? Like a cult following situation there.
Yeah. Like people, there's like a sect of people that get super obsessed with every detail about it. Yeah.
Which I'm sure if I watched it, maybe I would be one of those people because I get like that. But yeah. But yeah, that's just pretty much the only ones I really have heard of from that list, other than the Saw films.
Okay. So once we get past those opening credits there and the first shot comes up, boom, there it is. Just like I had just said before, referencing the opening to the spoilers section. We have the 4th of July, baby. We're partying it up. We're at the carnival. We're hanging out. All these people looking around like they very obviously look like extras, and they're just trying to figure out what a person walking around the carnival should look like they've never done it before.
I was looking at those people too, and I was like, I was trying to catch anyone who likes to look at the camera, because when you're an extra, they can't watch everyone, and it just takes one look. You break that fourth wall, buddy.
Yeah, dude, and it breaks the scene. I'm telling you, a lot of this movie looked like they just pulled people off the street. The set was ready. They got everything ready. They hired professional camera guys, and they got really good equipment and great shit like that. And the people that they got to put in front of the camera, they're just pulling off the street, having them sign a waiver, and getting them filmed real quick. It just, a lot of moments felt like that to me. So,
do you know, was this filmed in like the pandemic times, or was this before?
I'm not entirely sure when this was filmed.
Because if this was filmed during the pandemic times, unless, which everything could be CG nowadays, I don't know what to believe, like I said, from Army of the Dead. But if this was filmed during the pandemic and they got all those extras in there, I'm impressed, because that was a lot of people.
Yeah, that was a lot of people. Which is why, to a point, I could see why it's difficult to make sure that everybody is making sure they're making that background look believable.
It's important. It really is important.
But it's still their job. It's their job. So that was definitely fail number one for me. That immediately kind of pulled me out of the film.
I guess at this point, then we're we're introduced to Boswick, the well-dressed cop.
Yeah, the guy looked like he was off duty and went on duty with the
Right,
mafia.
he's got that hat and everything. I was just like, okay, look at him looking all fly. But I still have the cop vibes, though. Like, there was definitely cop vibes, and everyone there should know. So this is where what I never got is the guy throws that like firework like right at him, like right by him, like on the ground. Did you notice that?
Was it the guy that put his hands up that threw that firework?
Yeah, like why the hell would you do that? Don't be a dumbass.
That's it. Maybe he was trying to throw it in the garbage can. Do you think?
There's a guy with a gun. He's running around looking frantic. Cop or not, you don't be doing that.
I don't think that he noticed because he looked pretty scared shitless. So I don't know why he was throwing the firework back there, but I feel like that was just we're not going to come to an explanation for that because that was just something that the writers threw in there randomly to throw in a little scare. That's what I think. That's what I think there. Right before that, one thing that I noticed was I was kind of annoyed that the cop was really rude to the lady who had her purse taken from her. When he ran up behind her and he's just like, move, like get out of my way. And I thought that you know what I mean? Like finding this guy was more important than being like, hey, something happened to you and I'm going to help you. I'm here to help you. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm law enforcement. And just because I am bringing up law enforcement now, I think that this is a very anti-police, anti-blue film for sure.
That was my first note. I said I think they made this film because of the recent cop situations. Well, not recent, but we've been, that we're talking about more and trying to show the corruption. And I think, this is a very jab at it. You know what I mean? To
it's almost like it's almost like the most extreme way that they could go with explaining why they feel like, that cops in general are kind of being looked down upon in these days.
But I do like the fact that in this film, they have both sides. They have the good and the bad to show like, okay, yes, there is bad cops and something needs to be done for sure. And then you have the good cops.
Right. And Chris Rock is the perfect example of being the person that is a good cop, but because of what he's dealt with and what he's surrounded by, kind of turns him into a jaded cop that is just kind of mean and miserable and lets shit go and just kind of gets in his own misery about everything and, kind of loses that heroicness about him.
Yep, and that's something I wrote later too, where he's just, I feel like he doesn't want anybody to have this job except for him or something because he just seems so bitter.
Yeah.
To everyone and everything.
Yeah. I thought that was a pretty big cliche. Did the firecrackers make you jump? Did they scare you?
No, but the pig that grabbed Boswick got me a little bit.
Oh hell yeah, yeah. They and I didn't want to give the firecrackers credit, but they did make me jump. So as dumb as it was that guy just threw firecrackers there, I guess if that's what they wanted to do, it definitely worked on me.
I would have laughed if you only jumped at the fireworks and like by the time he got grabbed by the pig guy, you would have just been like, oh, that's not scary. What the hell?
It's like, oh,
lame.
I know, right? I will say, which is now going in more of a positive direction of something that I enjoyed throughout this whole film, was a lot of the shots that they got, a lot of the camera shots, some of the Dutch angles that they got. The camera seems to be moving a lot. Like I noticed that a lot of their shots had the camera following or the camera floating around them. There was a lot of shots was what seemed like kind of free-armed or freely floating camera shots.
Did you notice the one long take camera shot?
Yeah, when they were going for a walk, when they went for the walk.
Well, when they went down to the subway. down the steps
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't even notice at first.
I always notice immediately.
Cameron noticed it and he told me.
Oh, did he really?
And I was like, oh my God, you're right. Holy crap, that's so crazy. Like, so I get so into it sometimes I don't look at the actual technical stuff.
Yeah. I for some reason that's like something subconsciously that I'm always looking for, because I tend to like when something goes on longer like that. Like, you kind of feel like you get to see more of the character come out of the actor the longer that the camera's on for.
It makes the sets and stuff look bigger too.
Yes. It forces them to be in character longer and pull more out of them, and you get to feel like it definitely makes you feel more immersed when you're focused that long without them changing a cut, as long as it's not obnoxious or boring.
But since we're talking about like long shots and stuff, Alfred Hitchcock made a film back in the day called Rope, and that was almost like a one shot situation in like this house and like one tracking shot. It's insane that they were able to do that back then, because obviously there had to be cuts, especially with using physical film, and they did it really, really well. And then recently, well, not recently so much anymore, I think it was like a 2013 film or something, but it's called, I think it's called Silent House, and that was also filmed in the aspect of just a one shot situation. Although I'm sure they also had cuts, but it's hard to see where or when. It's a giant, like, it's a horror film, all like in like quote unquote real time, so you really get immersed in that. I haven't watched it since it came out, but I would like to check that one out again.
Yeah, that sounds really good. I'm probably going to look into that and watch myself, because that's the kind of thing that I'm super into, especially if they do it very well. So the last thing that you had mentioned was him getting grabbed by that pig in the sewer, the guy in the pig mask. And I didn't know right away at that moment, but I started to have a feeling around that time that I was really going to like this killer. I don't know why, but these are the two things that I was kind of referring to in the general thoughts section, was between the way that a lot of the shots were. I wasn't really a huge fan of the lighting. Nothing really took me away with the lighting in this movie. I wasn't very impressed with it. It got by. It was enough for me to not complain about it. But a lot of the camera shots I liked a whole bunch. And I also really, really got into this killer. I don't know how original I could say a lot of it felt to me. I didn't actually end up thinking about that too much, and nothing's really coming to me at the moment. But I really liked this killer, man. I liked the way that they portrayed him. He was always either really close or really far away. There was never any like coming or going. It was always very ominous and very sketchy, and that is what I was looking for. If there was going to be any extra involvement with the killer grabbing or getting a hold of any of its victims, I was hoping that they would do it effectively, like that they did, in my opinion.
With that being said, I like the pig killer look, but they did that on all the other Saw films. Like, that's one thing they kind of did carry over.
Oh.
But their version on the other ones was so much better. The mask looked like more gory. Like, it actually looked more like a real pig's head. It looked scarier, and the way they like laid it out. Like, I think in the first movie, the only way to see was this guy had his camera, and the only way he could see was through his flash. And so he flashed, and the pig's like there, like boom, and like, screeching and stuff. And it was more effective in the Saw films than it was on Spiral.
Wow. Well, you saying that definitely inspires me to finally watch them, though. That your opinion like that inspires me to watch them, because since I wasn't exposed to this kind of back and forth with a killer in this kind of scenario, because I've never really watched any trap and kill kind of movies or game and kill kind of movies. So I guess because that was different to me, I appreciated it a little bit more and I enjoyed it. But if you're saying that they did it more effectively in other movies, I cannot even begin to wait to watch them. And thank you for shedding that light on me. because I feel like throughout this entire review, I'm gonna kind of be that ignorant but positive person that I'm like, oh, this and that, and this was cool and this and that. But not saying that you're going to be negative, but because you have kind of the perspective of the other films in the series, it's going to be neat kind of going back and forth with you. Kind of, it's almost like I have an opinion and you're kind of going to be continually shedding, you know what I mean? Like you're going to be pulling back the curtain over and over again, kind of showing me and letting me know the way into what has been done in the past with the ancient ones.
I just think that if this film was done better, I wouldn't have to say any of this other stuff if they would have just done it right. I don't know.
I guess that's what makes this weird, is because this is kind of my first step into the Saw series, is this movie.
It only gets better from here.
It's funny kind of coming off at the end of the stick. And that's the impression that I got as to why people were saying that they wanted to just reboot the whole series, was because this was just, apparently this was such a flop that they're like, nope, got to start over. Got to completely start over.
I mean, let's put it this way. I would still watch a sequel to this film, or, you know, whatever. Like, I know there's more story to be told with it. I guess I don't think it's a good film, nor do I think the sequel would be any better, especially with Chris Rock. But, you know, if they had made one, I'm not going to say that I wouldn't watch it.
Yeah. Might as well see it through. Just next time, I think that I'll wait till it's free.
Yeah, no way paying $20 again. That's upsetting.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that they better use the money that I gave to them to support them. On to better things.
Well, now that he got grabbed, back to Boswick getting grabbed by that pig, we now see him in the subway train area above the train tracks, and he is like strung up by his tongue. The trap is a trap that like has pulled his tongue out and is practically ripping it out, and he is on a ladder. And his hands on top of it are tied back behind his back, and his barbed wire that's keeping him, like razored barbed wire that's just holding his arms together. And man, when he rips his arms out of that barbed wire, like he just pulls and it just starts slide. Oh man, that barbed wire, that would just cut some like major arteries and veins around his wrists doing that, I feel. But ooh.
I gave that guy a lot of credit. Not as much as one other guy that I give even more credit to, but I thought that this guy was, at first, I was like, wow, this guy's got some balls. I would have just waited. I definitely would have just waited for that train.
See, I almost want to think that, like, would I've bitten my tongue off? Would I've tried to? But I don't even know. Cameron said something about his jaw was broken. Was his jaw broken open too?
I didn't notice that. Because that was the only.
I thought maybe his tongue was just stuck. Because if that was the case, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I would try to bite. Because imagine ripping your tongue out, like it would come out from like your throat, not just like at the tip.
Right. Yeah. The muscle starts all the way down almost into your throat a little bit. Like it's all the way down.
And that's
here.
enough to kill you.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. You'd probably bleed out in easily less than a minute. So it's like, you know, there were definitely some times where I was like, why does this killer keep telling them that they will survive? Because more than likely, based on their scenarios, nobody would get to them to save them from the amount of blood loss that they're going to have.
No, and, you know, that's one thing, too, that I didn't like about a lot of these traps is they were almost impossible, very unfair. And don't get me wrong, there were some older movies that also did the same thing. But for the most part, the original films, they made it fair enough that if you really wanted to get out, you're going to hurt, you're going to be scarred, but you probably could survive. It's just you have to get through the pain or do a certain task. These ones felt like almost impossible. Like machines weren't working right. Like I'll get back to that one. We'll get to the finger guy later.
I think that I did end up feeling like that was intentional though, because of the subject matter and all of this really heavy cop hatred that's going on here. I feel like it was intentional to tell them that they could survive, because otherwise at no point would they have been suffering until they died. I mean, there is one that that definitely obviously would have suffered all the way to the point of death. There's a perfectly good reason for that. But for the other ones that died, like, that was the thing, was all of them suffered so much more trying to make it and then dying anyway. And truthfully, I thought that was kind of the point, was to give them the idea that they could survive, just to put themselves through more pain and stress to the point that they died anyway. I felt like that was an intentional move.
Okay. That makes sense. But it doesn't matter because Boswick was a little too late anyway, and still fell down, ripped his tongue out at last minute, and still the train was right there, and he went splat.
Yeah. I really enjoyed when the train driver, the conductor, was just driving the train when they just showed that shot, which I also thought was a cool shot with that still shot with the train moving. That looked really good. But his his facial expression, like, it really looked like all this crazy shit is going on right now, but this dude's just working his mundane train driving job or the subway driving job. And it's funny that the guy who had no lines did a better job acting than the ones that had all the lines.
Maybe even some of the fare extras in the background.
Yeah, they need more credit.
Yeah,
they need
do.
to be brought up in the credits, because those were the stars. Those were the real stars. But he didn't stand a chance.
No, I mean, unless he tried a little faster, but even then, I don't know.
So that's kill number 1.
That is kill number 1, and I want to vote for our most rough favorite, or most rough trap at the end.
Sounds good to me.
But now we're introduced to a new voice compared to the older Saw films. Now we are introduced to this voice. I don't like it. I don't need the original one, but I just don't like the voice that they use for the recordings and all that stuff. It just sounds so lame, so boring. Even that hi, you haven't been a good person, and for that you need. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's boring. It didn't sound scary. It was just get out of here.
It sounded like they went to a high school and they got some English or history teacher, just some Joe Schmo history teacher, to read the lines for the voiceover, and they just put the effect and put it over the footage.
Yep. I mean, honestly,
I'm telling you, dude, I know for a fact that they just grabbed randos. They grabbed a whole bunch of randos for this whole film, and they're just not telling anybody.
After Boswick dies from the train, we're kind of introduced to Chris Rock now. Apparently he's undercover. I thought he was just a bad guy at the beginning, and I'm just this. It's weird seeing him as a bad guy and all the swearing and stuff, and then just to find out that he is a cop, and I'm like, all right, it's weird that you're a cop. No matter what he did, it's just anything serious that he tried to do or badass that he tried to do, I just couldn't take him serious. Just the best parts that I think for him was some of his one-liners. That's my favorite part, and it's usually when he's making a stab at somebody else and joking, or saying some shit to them, and it's kind of a joke out loud for us, and that's the parts I like from his dialogue.
Right. The parts that you liked that he did the most were probably the parts that were most actually like him.
Exactly. So they apparently were on some undercover mission, and he was, and then they get in this elevator. They change really fast, apparently, and they get in this elevator, and the doors open, and there are all his fellow cops.
And they're all there. That's why my first thought was, wow, how did they know?
Exactly.
Because that sucks. But that got revealed very, very quickly, which, as you said, undercover cop. Then it turns out that Detective Zeke is the stereotypical kind of loudmouth, hard ass, doesn't really stick to the rules kind of cop, that it just so happens to turn out that his dad was on the force and his dad was a respected hard ass. And so he's kind of like living in his dad's shadow, but it turns out that, that pretty much everybody that's on his own force hates him, which already kind of seems ridiculous, because who wants to work for a team where your life is on the line constantly and nobody likes you, which is something that kind of sets him up for a few scenarios in the future. But I didn't like already with this, just kind of filling out those cliches with him just being that really hot-headed but has good intentions cop that always gets thrown under the bus and nobody likes him. And then because of his hot-headedness, here's the captain, and here she is saying, you need to cool it down, you're out of control, you need a partner, you need to focus. So I'm going to throw this little weenie at you, this little weenie cop at you that's a nobody that you're going to treat like shit the whole time because you're annoyed that he's there.
No, he's not going to treat him the whole shit for the whole time. He treats him for like shit for like the first few hours of the day, and then all of a sudden he's fine. He's a fine. Like, what did he do to change? I don't understand it. We'll get to that part, but
I know that definitely irritated me too. Where I was like, oh, okay. All of a sudden you stuck around, like just because he was just being moody. So just because you were around long enough, all of a sudden he's like, okay, all right, I'm relaxed. You were around. I appreciate you.
Captain, I have her down here as Riverdale mom because she is in Riverdale as Hermione Lodge, and I love Riverdale. That's like my favorite TV show, and I did like her performance in this. I thought maybe it would have been jarring to see her from Riverdale on this, but even with that, I was okay. Like, I was comfortable with her performance.
Agreed. I think that she played a strong captain.
Yes. Yep.
How did you feel about were you feeling like you were getting hit in the face with a bunch of cliches with this one here? Like, do you feel like you've seen the events that were kind of taking place, that were unfolding in the beginning, kind of replicated a lot of other films that have tried to follow that storyline?
Oh yeah, especially the Saw films. Honestly,
oh my goodness! Again,
it's just I don't.
Do the Saw films kind of do a lot of cliche shit?
Yes, they do, but they're still good. I think the Saw films are good. I think this might be like every Saw film. The traps are what you really come for, to be honest with you. Like, that's not how the first one started. The first one was more about like the mystery behind what's going on. I think you would really like the first one. At least check out the first maybe 3. I think those two or those 3 will fit together well. But yeah, there's a lot of cliches. A lot of horror movies have a lot of cliches because that's the only way to make them work. Usually, there is ways around to try to do certain things so you don't have so many cliches. But I don't know. This one is just, it's hard because you got to still kind of stick like the same format like you did with the other ones, because that's what, you don't want to just have it in the same Saw universe and then treat it completely different because people are going to be upset. You know what I mean?
Yeah. People get upset pretty easily.
Yes, they do. And you can't make everyone happy either.
But sometimes for good reason. And maybe this is turning out to be a good reason to be upset. Especially if you're a longtime Saw fan.
Yeah. I mean, and again, there's some elements of this film that were really good. And I think it honestly has some of the best gore as in the most realistic gore. There's definitely some even better gore in some of the other films, but this is just like the most realistic gore that I've seen. And like I said, I'll get into that in some of these other traps, because that first one, as cringy as it was, there is some more that come that are even worse. But before all that, this is when we get a line from Chris Rock that just kind of, again, sticks out to me. I'm going to have a few on here that he says that always stick out to me because they're funny or just like, whoa. When Chris Rock and Shank are, is that how you pronounce his name? Shank. Him and Shank are talking, and Shank and his wife apparently go to counseling, and all Chris, again, he's just negative Nancy the whole time. And all Chris says is, my wife fucked a counselor. And that's it. Just like ruins like, oh, okay, no winning with you, bud.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, I hate to say it. I was trying not to say this while we were talking about the camera shot because I just wanted to focus on that and not get stuck on a tangent. So now that we're here, it really bothered me that whole time for that nice long shot that they did, all they did was have Chris Rock being super misogynistic just because he's bitter about going through a divorce. I thought that was such a waste of space, especially because he's supposed to be the good guy, but he's kind of putting himself in a bad light because, they're deciding he's like airing out his dirty laundry to this new guy, and that apparently that's the only thing that they have to talk about, is to have, all of these lines of him just, saying that no matter what situation that anybody's in, just because she's a woman and she's your wife or she's your girlfriend, that she must be either thinking or doing shitty things behind your back or is a shitty person and you don't know it.
Yeah. Yeah. He's supposed to be the good guy, but you just can't like him. Like they make him unlikable as well. And it's unfortunate. I feel bad because that's all I keep talking about. But he's supposed to be the one that's really like keeping, like he's the glue to this film right now. And he is not gluing.
Yeah. And, I wouldn't feel too bad because we are not the only ones who are being super critical about what's going on here. And most people, honestly, are being a lot nastier about it than I'm sure that we will ever be about it.
Yeah, because there's still elements to like, for sure. One thing I noticed, too, this far into the film is everything seems to have more of a sepia tone, like a more yellow tone, while the predecessing films had more of a greenish tone. But I guess this was an early note because there is a moment that I think it's a slow motion shot of Chris after somebody's death, and he walks out in the hall, and it's kind of like I think it's like a Dutch angle, and it's like green, more of a greeny tone to it. So yeah, very green.
This is pretty intense. Like being a detective, I'm sure that they don't stumble across this shit all the time. And going into that situation, I was pretty surprised at this point and through the rest of the movie that the reactions to how intense they went out of their way to make the gore in this film, the reactions to the gore was pathetic. The reactions were not what anybody would ever react to, no matter how much shit that they've seen in their life. This is some intense, disgusting shit that's happening, and I just felt like the main actors weren't responding the way that they should have to that kind of shit.
Well, I feel like Shank had some sort of reaction until Chris was like, okay.
No. That was fine. That was fine. And there's plenty good reasons as to why they would specifically make sure that they get a good reaction from him. Like he is new, he is a newbie, and they want, he's not. I guess he's not really a newbie. I don't know. Was he kind of new to the force, or was he just kind of a?
I call him a rookie. Yeah,
he seemed. I think that they put in the description that he was kind of a rookie too. So we'll go with rookie. So this guy's kind of a rookie, and I would expect him to have that kind of reaction. And it even actually seemed like for the first one that after really letting it settle in, that even Chris kind of gets this grossed out reaction and kind of gets tripped out by it. But I wanted to, that everything escalates except for the way that they respond to these things, and everything gets so much more dramatically worse that I wouldn't expect them to just kind of get numb to everything happening so easily.
But it would be weird if they got like super affected every time, though. You'd be like, all right, come on.
No, but in the acting department, you know what I mean? That's up to them to show, to figure out how to gauge that out, because each response, there's a different way to respond to every situation. So once again, there's a good old smash out of the park. towards Chris Rock. Poor Chris Rock. Love you, but
This did not help his career.
I think that you stepped up to bat for the wrong team. No. If anything, this is just going to be something that gets forgotten about, I'm sure.
Or just made fun of too much.
Oh, yeah.
And then forgotten about.
So Detective Zeke receives this little tiny green box with a tape in it. And I did get a little chuckle because I would have done the same shit. His partner, William, was like, why are you using my computer? And he's like, because I don't want to fuck up my computer.
That was fun. And see, that's the funny stuff. Yeah.
That's the stuff that's the stuff you're talking about where it's like, you know what I mean? That feels like him. And that's the kind of humor that I enjoy. So it doesn't take too much longer after that before they realize that it is one of their own that died, because at this point they did not know that it was a cop that worked at their station that was the one that had his tongue ripped out and got hit by the subway.
They thought it was a homeless man.
Yeah, they did. I mean, he didn't, because he's like, oh, wedding ring and Fitbit, but they did think that it would. Why wouldn't they? You know what I mean? I'm sure that kind of thing happens every once in a while, probably at least once a year, I would think.
I mean, that'd be sad if that's once a year. That's actually one too many times.
And I have to say, Dillon, that in any normal situation, the second that it would turn out that it was somebody in their own station that was a part of this homicide, nobody in that station should have anything to do with the crime anymore.
Amen.
This whole film is getting more and more personal within the department, and everyone is still involved, still trying to solve it, still being a part of it when they're the last people that legally should be having anything to do with it.
They should be taken in for questioning, honestly, by like the FBI and stuff.
It's not realistic at all. Then obviously I thought it was weird that they didn't do anything with the news. You know what I mean? Like they didn't show anything popping up on the news about this, because this should be a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? This is something the world should be talking about.
Especially if it's like a copycat, saw killer thing.
Yeah. After three consecutive kills like that in such and such amount of time, that makes a serial killer, and that definitely makes news.
So apparently Chris has a son in this film and an ex-girlfriend or wife or something like that. And you see him go to the house to see them. And that's it. That's the last time you see his son and or ex-wife or girlfriend. And I'm like, okay, well, that was all pointless. That could have been a deleted scene.
Yep. Because it was just an awkward moment. Like just the kind of moment that you're hoping that never happens when you're like around anyone that you know and their significant other. You're like hoping that you're never around when they're just having that argument where they're like, are we really going to do this right now? Do you really want to do this right now?
Yeah.
It's just
it didn't feed anything to the story.
No. If anything, it was like them trying to back up how he was, almost them trying to justify why he was saying all of those things that he was saying about her in the subway when they were having that long shot. Let me see here. I thought at that moment, though, that you're talking about, I did think it was super funny and good on Detective William, like as an actor, like just the way that he was when he was like awkwardly trying to say hi, and they just, he's just like, no, forget about you, like get out of here, like it's little things like that I still did enjoy, and them slamming the door in his face. Like the second that I accepted that he was just going to be roasting him for an indefinite amount of time, I kind of just felt like I might as well enjoy the little things that he does to screw with him.
Well, it doesn't seem like it was forever because, like I said, after everything like happens and they do some research, I think it's like the same day or the day after, and then all of a sudden he's just like, "Oh yeah, you go home. It's cool. You go home, and like everything's all good." And I'm like, "You guys are like buddy now," and it's like, "What happened? Where was the transition?"
Yeah, I was not expecting that. That.
Oh, whatever. I did some research too because I, showed like a cityscape, and I'm just trying to figure out where like some of the filming locations and stuff were. And I don't know what the actual city that you see in the film, like the wide shot, but it was filmed in Toronto, Canada, and Philadelphia.
At this point now, we see good old Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes, in his prime, looking like he shouldn't be playing Chris's dad, and that threw me off so hard when I'm like, how and why? Now, I did the math in real life for Samuel's like real age and Chris's real age, and I did the math, and it is possible that he could have had him as a child in real life. How old do you think he would have been?
Big enough age gap?
Big enough, but it would have been rough to have. I mean, it's not impossible. People do it. It's just.
I'm gonna say probably 16-year difference.
Booyah! You got it right on the nose, bud. 16 years old.
Oh, look at that! Look at that!
Joe gets some points.
This was everyone's first impression of Samuel L. Jackson in the movie. And at this point, I actually felt like he might have had a good role to play and would play a good role just because we were just getting to see him. And he definitely seemed like that kind of mouthy, sarcastic, shitty dad that definitely lets him down in a moment where he's like, actually, Dad, like he opens up. You know, most of the time, a lot of the times people are like, nah, I'm fine, or I will be fine. But he was just straight up. He's like, no, Dad, I'm fucked up right now. And, you know, actually seeing someone be completely straight up about that and him just be like, yeah, whatever, we can just eat some pizza and talk about the case later. And I was like, ooh, damn, bad dad right there. Real bad dad.
Oh, yeah.
Made me sad. Sad about the bad dad.
And they live right in the same building, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I did think that it was funny that he said that he could have tenant rights when he pays rent.
Oh, Jesus.
I was like, damn, that's such a dick move. Like, I get it, but that.
Yeah, right. Like, you don't own nothing. Like, you're just.
So
whatever.
I'm just, especially because I'm your dad, I'm going to do whatever I want.
Well, we eventually get a picture of John Kramer, and he is the original Saw killer. So that's a connection between the original films and that, showing that it's still in the same universe. Obviously, they talked about it, but that's about it. You just got that picture of John Kramer, thinking that that's who could have possibly been, or a copycat because he's not around anymore.
Is that the only connection between this film and the other films?
I mean, you have the trap, the ideas of the traps. You have like the
I mean,
puppet
besides
thing.
the impersonator and what they did, were there any other leaks or pullovers from the other
thing
films?
that I know, the two things that stick out to me the most that I remember that literally, if you've seen that or heard that, you would think you were just watching one of the original Saws, and it is just a picture of John Kramer, and then towards the end, you actually get the original Saw music. So, and I like that part. I was like, okay, there it is. I've been waiting for that. And we're probably, a little less than halfway through the film so far, and I just want to let you know that I have not run into any dead pixels yet.
Thank the good cinema lords. Because if I have to think for 1 second that my TV's messed up because of this stupid movie, I'm going to lose my shit.
You should just punch your goddamn TV.
That's an inside joke if you're a fan from the first episode. So since we are at this point in the film, I started to kind of formulate my own assumption of who is this killer? And I'm sure that I just kind of fell into the bag that all the other general spectators fell into, where my immediate thoughts were, this killer is the dirty cop that Chris Rock turned in, which is why everybody treats him like shit.
I have been questioning who it was. I didn't think it was him because it was too obvious, but I was thinking for a while.
Ouch, that hurts.
No, because it still was a possibility. By all means, it definitely was a possibility. But I was questioning it of all of these people. And then, even after... It's hard to say it now because there's some more kills that happened that were at this point, I don't know who did it. I have an idea of who it could possibly be. And I did think the rookie was one of the possibilities. But then that...
I had no inclination of that at this time.
it might have not have happened this soon, but it definitely does happen. And, and then, like I said, after this, one of the traps I will explain, I still felt that way. Like I didn't believe it 100%. I was confused, but didn't believe it 100%. So,
well, I think that it's absolutely silly that you would think such a thing.
well, just wait for it and I'll explain. I'll explain everything.
I bet you will.
Well, now we get the one cop that goes, he's trying to figure this out kind of on his own as well. And he goes to the shop and he steals this gun from the shop owner. Like,
oh God.
does he?
Another moment where they like went out of their way to show a cop abusing
Yeah,
their
I was going
privilege.
to say, does he not have his own gun? Like, was this guy like illegally possessing these guns or selling them? Or
No, that guy was just being a douche.
oh, okay, that sucks.
Yeah, he was just straight up because he was like, in the name of such and such police department, we thank you for donating this gun to me. Pretty much is what he said.
Well, apparently he gets his comeuppance anyways because he goes to this car and he opens the door and this sleeping piggy falls out. And when I say sleeping, it's dead. And
Yeah.
then Mr. Human Piggy comes up behind him and grabs him. And that's another jump scare. Boo.
Yeah. But let's talk about where he grabbed him. Was there anything? Didn't you feel really confused at that time?
The crotch, huh? He grabbed him in the crotch.
No, about where?
I don't know. I don't know where he grabbed him. I don't. What do you mean? I don't.
No, where he was when he got caught. Like, I was very confused. I was like, why is he in this kind of empty, shitty looking place and there's this mattress on the floor and there's someone sleeping there? Like, what is this cop doing
why
at this?
here?
Like, who's he trying to see? This place looks really shitty, and whoever's living here is obviously homeless and found a mattress. Like, it didn't make sense at the time as to why he was there or why he got caught there. And I feel like they took a long time to make that make sense. And they also didn't go out of their way to really make it make sense either.
No, I just figured, I'm like, it's just a loophole thing, that's something we don't know that they know. And I'm just like, just get on with it. I know you're going to die, so hurry up. Next trap, please.
Yep. I didn't see anywhere where they made the connection with that, really. It was just, it was like some more backstory shit that never would get explained on paper, but would never be explained in the movie.
And that's where this film falls short.
Yeah. Yeah. There weren't really a lot of, like, usually I don't get annoyed by things about what they do for like Foley and ADR and all the like background sounds and audio and stuff like that. But there was a point when, after they were all looking over everything in that conference room, and that's also when Zeke is, finally gets to the point where he's like, Detective William, you're not a little douche anymore. You're now, I respect you. You're my friend. But at that point, that's when, the captain comes in and she is kind of like, hey, this is what we need to get doing. We need to do this and that. There is a moment here where when the captain is talking and she's kind of explaining this and that, and then they're deciding what they're going to do next, all I can focus on is hearing this phone ringing in the background over and over again, and nobody's picking it up. And it was through like almost the whole scene where this phone just never stopped ringing. They made it so, it was definitely obvious that a phone was ringing, and they had it, for just like background noises, but it was the same ring from the same phone that was happening the whole time, and nobody answered it. And I just think that actually really bothered me because it was so noticeable.
I would like to move on to the next trap, and I don't know if they have a name for it, but I'm going to call it the Chinese finger trap, because that's what those things remind me of. Those, how you put your finger in those like little
Yep.
things.
Yeah, those
That's
are my
exactly
favorite
what that
things to
reminded
win at Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh, Chuck E. Cheese. That's where you got those, huh? Not Playtime Pizza?
No, I never actually went to Playtime Pizza as much as I would reference it in my past life. But I would always get a bunch of
Past life,
tickets
your
at Chuck
current
E.
life.
Cheese. I would always get a bunch of tickets at Chuck E. Cheese, but because I always went with my cousins, when I finally got to go, I had to divvy up my tickets with all my younger cousins. So I never had a lot of tickets to afford all the good things. So all my favorite gifts to get with what little tickets I had left over were the Chinese finger traps and the sticky hands.
I Oh, the sticky hand. I never heard that story, and I'm so glad that you shared that because it's very humble of you, and it's very funny at the same time.
I just did what any good cousin would do.
Well, you're better than me. I would have been like, that shit's mine.
Damn.
I'm not getting that sticky hand. I want something good. I want like
That big Reptar plush.
I probably couldn't afford that. I didn't win too many tickets. I probably would have been able to get maybe 2 sticky hands.
Oh my God.
So, going on to the next trap, I like to call it the Chinese finger trap, and the cop that stole that gun, I don't know what his name is, but he stole that gun from that business man, and I guess he's going to be getting his comeuppance, but he's in a container of water that will electrocute him in a short amount of time if he is not willing to pretty much rip his fingers out of his sockets, off of his hand, actually. And his fingers are on these like metal trap things that like pull him tight, and like they start pulling him up out of the water, and he's got a bar across so he can't go anywhere, but it like keeps pulling on his fingers until they can be ripped off. My thing is, this is where I don't think this trap is very fair, because it stops pulling on his fingers, and that's wasting time. Like if they would have just kept him pulling, he could have jumped out of that water.
The only reason why it stopped pulling on his fingers is because he opened his mouth. He couldn't take the pain anymore, and he opened his mouth real quick. And then he said, fuck it, I'm going to keep going on. But he had to keep going the whole time if he was going to make it.
Oh, wait. So...
Yeah, he actually opened up his own mouth to stop it because he couldn't take the pain. Regrouped, decided to continue to keep doing it.
Oh, why? I guess I'm missing something. I didn't realize that his mouth had something to do with this.
Yeah, he had to chew on... He had that thing in his mouth, and he had to bite down on it, and as long as he bit down on it, the machine would keep running so that he could pull his fingers off so that he wouldn't get electrocuted to death.
Oh, okay. Well, then, my bad. I guess these traps aren't as unfair. But,
no, they're still unfair. They're definitely still unfair because he just would have totally bled out from his missing phalange holes.
Ew, phalange holes. So gross. All I think about is Friends, too, when you say phalanges.
So, unfortunately, another cop comes to their demise, of course, right before they would have made it to where they would have been, quote unquote, survivable. And that's pretty much the end of him again. That's the end of him. And I think that I really enjoyed that one a little bit more because they started to show you it and his situation a little bit, and they cut away from it instead of just continuing on through the kill. They kind of gave you a moment to see what was about to happen and give it a little bit of room to breathe before they followed through with it.
Yes.
And that made that all in all more effective for me.
Yes. I mean, just even the trap itself, I think it was a step up from the first one, and I'm glad that we went like from an okay trap to like, holy shit. All right.
Yeah. It definitely seemed like they decided to go in chronological order as far as where most people would typically rate from from least traumatic to most traumatic.
Yes. And we have more traps to come, so we'll get to those as well.
Yeah, so that's the end of kill number 2.
I mean, seriously though, during that one, like I said, I just wrote, fucking ouch, I'm cringing. Like that's...
Yeah,
ooh.
they not a lot of times do they continue to keep the camera and have the effects going on for the kind of gorage that they had going on. Like you were watching the fingers, the skin being pulled apart. Like some fingers popped off sooner than other ones. Some fingers lasted longer. So, you could see the skin fraying apart. You could see the inside and the bones and the flesh kind of flapping in all different directions. It was very visual. They did not miss a single detail.
Oh my God. It was just I want to know what that one trap was though that they did not put in, because These ones were rough, some of them.
Yeah, so to know that they took it beyond what they already showed, which we both apparently think was pretty gnarly, for them to say, this one's a little bit too much to put in there. I hope that there's some sort of director's cut that does come out, because
I would love that.
I would actually be interested in seeing that.
I mean, I'll fast forward to The Trap. I don't need to see the whole movie again. So now, after like the finger thing happens, they're like Chris Rock and all them guys. They go to that one building. Is that where? I don't know. They go to a building. This is where you need help because it's been a little while. I don't remember everything, but they go to a building and I remember them going up the stairs and the one room with a red light was in there, and then one guy goes leave the room, and it's just all I'm assuming Mary Jane smoke just filling up the room. Do you know what I'm talking about?
So before you go back to that, there's only one thing that we did miss, that because you've been pointing out little one-liners. There's only one-liner in the whole movie that was right before that I enjoyed. At this point now, we did forget to mention that Samuel L. Jackson, they show him kind of in this creepy little place walking to this building, and then he just kind of goes away and we don't see him for a while. And Chris, Detective Zeke, goes to his dad's house to go see him, and that's when the pizza comes and he's supposed to be there at night and hanging out, and that's when he gives Will the night off. And it turns out Dad's not there. And when he goes in, he has a flashback, and it's a flashback of this reporter because of something that Detective Zeke did. Because of when Zeke spilled the beans on the dirty cop, there was a reporter there to report on it, and the reporter comes up and he comes to talk to the captain, and the captain hits him in the fucking face with the door, knocks him on his ass, and he says the words right when he's like, you got anything to see here? Did you need anything? You want anything? He's like, no, I don't want anything. And he was like, all right, fuck you very much. And I was like, damn, that is a perfect one-liner for him. I wasn't expecting him to say that. I wasn't expecting him to say thank you, but I also wasn't expecting him to do that play off of thank you either.
Can we also just talk about the fact that Samuel Jackson kept a spare key above his door?
Yeah. What kind of police officer? Yeah.
Exactly.
Stupid.
I'm like, whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. It's obviously a super accessible and obvious place to leave your apartment key, especially for someone who probably has quite a few people that don't like him.
Exactly. In the city, nonetheless. You know what I mean? A big city.
So moving on from my short little appreciation line there that I will probably put in my back pocket and start using that regularly, hopefully at work, because that just seems to be the most appropriate place for me to use such a thing. They get this tip, which is what was going on when that annoying phone thing was happening, that the last guy that was killed in that trap was seen at the 4th of July thing with this guy. I can't remember his name. I think it was Benny. Yeah, it was Benny. Sees this guy named Benny. And so they didn't know how to find Benny, but they knew that Benny was a meth head. And they knew that the way that they would find Benny is if they found his drug dealer. So Detective Zeke, and which this was actually a moment where I did enjoy him, was he shows up to the scene with his partner, and he pretends with this random meth head to be trying to get some meth from this guy. And I think that he actually plays that out really well, and that moment was pretty good. And he actually puts this little exploding ink blot thing in the bucket. The bucket goes up, blows up in his face, and he goes up, and he pretty much interrogates this guy. He pretty much completely interrogates this guy into giving up where the last place or where he would expect Benny to be.
But one thing like I know you said you kind of liked his performance with that, and again, I still didn't even like that there. I don't know. I just felt like he's always a tryhard, and he's just not trying hard enough.
I wasn't super. There wasn't like a standing ovation about it, but it just, I guess it was kind of goofy, and I guess that was, I don't know. I guess the only reason why I accepted it is because it went exactly how I would have expected it to go.
When they get upstairs, and they get to that door, and what's his name? The guy in there, is his name Benny?
No, the meth is just the meth dealer. I don't remember his name.
Okay. The drug dealer, when they get up to the top floor where the drug dealer's at, and they get to the door frame, the rookie and the rookie and Chris, and he just, the dealer starts shooting at the door frame, like, or shooting at the door, shooting at them. No way that they wouldn't have gotten hit, dude. Like, they would have gotten hit for sure. They look like the guy hit.
Yeah, he was just blowing off a semi-automatic. No big deal.
And no scrape, no nothing. I'm like, okay, whatever. So,
I mean, it was pretty much just, yeah, they attacked him, they busted him up, and pretty much the last thing that happened with that situation that I was like, oh, I actually kind of felt bad for him, was the last word that Detective Zeke says before he walks away is, fuck this snitch. And I was like, damn, dude, like, look what you did to this guy to make him break. Like, and now you're like, this guy's a snitch. What a piece of shit snitch. Which is also funny because he was a snitch.
yeah.
But also, I just kind of felt, I shouldn't feel bad, but it made me feel bad for the drug dealer when he said, fuck this snitch, after messing him up and dumping alcohol on his very obviously broken bone sticking out of his leg.
And I was going to say, too, even with that being like a thing with his bone sticking out and everything, and then Chris hits his leg, that's like the bone that's sticking out of his leg with an alcohol bottle. And that guy just, yeah, and then he dumps alcohol on it too. And the guy, like, yeah, he screams and stuff, but he just doesn't seem like he's in as much pain as he actually should be. He should be either throwing up or passing out or just continuously just, you know what I mean? And he just was kind of screaming at some points of it. Like, he was just showing, like, there was always a pain, but it was more of like, oh, this hurts, stop, you know, instead of like just giving it your all because you're, I don't know. Even that was not a good performance.
Another time that it falls short with the reaction that I would be expecting, or anyone would be expecting. So he's, you know, with that being instilled into his brain and him thinking about that, you know, the first obvious person and the only one that we would be familiar with as an audience as to someone that wouldn't like him is his ex-partner. So he goes to this AA meeting, and you kind of stumble in on him being very blunt with someone else at the AA meeting, and of course you like stumble in on him being this super douche, and you're like, okay, yeah, like obviously this guy is showing to be the dick that is making me feel like, you know, there was perfectly good reason, you know, before they gave away too much information, was a perfectly good reason as to why he did spill the beans on him in the first place.
Yeah.
And then they have a conversation, and his new little rookie partner gets to see how he really was, and kind of confirms to him too, like, oh, I could kind of see, you know, I could kind of see why you felt about the way that he was, and I'm seeing him for myself now. And that kind of made me feel even more suspicious that it could be him. But then it also, after I started thinking about it, it pulled away from my suspicion. And so seeing him, they didn't really get too much out of that. And, you know, it just kind of leads up to a moment of him kind of getting closer with his partner, Detective William. And, you know, William kind of being like, you know what, I'm really glad that, you know, maybe it's actually a good thing that you're my partner, or that I got partnered up with you, because that makes me feel safe and makes me feel like somebody has my back. And from then, that's the end of the day for them. And it goes into the next day. And here is another poor, innocent post-delivery service person who just gets a bunch of guns pointed at their head, and everybody's freaking out, and they're just doing their job. And, I'm just like, damn, like take it easy on this guy. Like this has happened, obviously, that, they find out every time that there's no connection between the person delivering the package and the package itself. But this time the box is much bigger. And just before this, Detective Zeke is trying to get a hold of his partner. It's the morning. He's supposed to have already been arrived. So you're kind of getting this suspicion that this bigger box might have something to do with this partner. And, they're kind of worried about a bomb. They're thinking things have escalated. So they get everybody out of there. And they're super dramatic about it. And he opens up the box, and there is the puppet that was in the video that he did and said, made some sort of riddle about something being under his skin. Is he getting under his skin? And there it was. He could see the tattoo that he remembered of his partner saying his son's name in the car when they were having a little conversation. So that at that moment, that confirmed to him that his new rookie partner is dead. And once again, another cop is dead at the hands of this knockoff killer.
So at this point, when I seen the skin and the tattoo, I was like, all right, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about him, because I thought that he was going to be the killer.
It's his flesh.
And then I'm like, why in the world aren't they showing it? And that sucks because I wanted to see it. He's like, so that made me question it a little bit more. I'm like, maybe he is still the killer. And then we get to see the body of the skinned person. So then we get to go back and see that was a post-mortem that they were skinned?
I don't remember hearing any screaming or anything like that. So I'm thinking that they were already dead and skinned them.
Well, I'll tell you, this person getting skinned was so realistic. So realistic. It looks like you had how when something gets skinned or anything like that, you have the white tendons and all the skin. Yeah. It looked real. I actually thought maybe they used a real animal but obviously I don't think they did because it's a human shape. So good on them with that special effects because that was just impressive. That part really stuck out to me as far as realisticness.
Yeah, I wrote that flesh though. That flesh though.
Yes. See, you know what's up. Yeah, so at that point, I'm just so confused now on who it is.
This was the
still
kill
in the back
that
of
I
my
thought.
mind, but still confused.
This was the kill that I thought was too gruesome that they weren't going to show.
Yeah, but the person was already dead, I think.
Which is why it messed me up. That's why it messed me up so much more when they started showing it because I had mentally not prepared myself for it. I thought it wasn't happening, and then it started happening. It freaked me out. I was pretty grossed out.
Could you imagine being skinned alive? Oh,
no. That is a fate much worse than death.
Yeah, just I'd rather just be dead fast. I think that would be anybody, I guess. I don't think anybody wants to be skinned.
No.
It's sign me up, man.
There's somebody out there. Somebody I'm sure that
Ripley's Believe It or Not people.
Yeah, or Nick Chittle.
Nick Chittle, hey, he had another baby.
As long as it's in a bedroom setting, I think that he would be down for any sort of torture.
Do you know something I don't know?
No, he just says those kind of things all the time and definitely genuinely seems like he means it.
Well, he's closer to you there than he is me, so
yeah, and I'm surprised I
might have to give him that favor.
I haven't seen him yet. My opinion at this point got brought back up again that now, more than ever, doubling on top of the first time, they should not be on this case. Even one of the people in the police station says that he should not be on this case, and I definitely, I agreed with that. But at this point, them yelling about it, I just everything that was going on, people were either reacting too much, not enough, or awkwardly. So to keep things moving along here, I just want to get through just a few quick things that I said from this point to the next point was the killer continues to creep me out big time. I love how and I don't necessarily know if it's the killer himself or the killer itself or the way that they go about showing the killer and the lighting and the fog and the depth and shots that they use that makes it more effective for me. But the killer is creepy, and I really appreciate the camera shots that they use at this point in time. Because we're talking about this killer, the reason why we're seeing this killer again is not only because any other reason, but to get to the next kill. And to get to this kill, Detective Zeke does some realizations through the clues that he's been given, only to realize that the captain was missing, and that while he was going to be distracted by picking up this other kill that happens, he's distracted by this cop that gets cut by this random person, and he gets distracted by this cop that gets cut by this random person, thinking that it's still related to the jigsaw thing, only to have in his head be other thoughts of things that were brought up to him recently juggling around to make him realize, oh shit, it's the captain. And he leaves the scene and he gets back to the station and he's looking for her and he realizes, oh no, she's definitely caught. And he, another situation that I don't like, that I thought instead of underplayed was overplayed, was him just like totally freaking out on everyone out of nowhere about the captain being gone and missing. And they jump to her being in the basement of the police station where the killer just so happens to be, and somehow nobody saw him get there. So maybe that's showing at this point that it might be a cop and might have some sort of access. So this could be an inside man
or woman
doing this. And so I was like, oh, this is exactly why these cops shouldn't have been on the job in the first place, because if they were on the job, or if they weren't on the job, there wouldn't be any of this interpersonal shit happening.
Save so much time and trouble.
Getting killed off in their own station. Yep, would have saved us a whole movie. So that brings us to kill number 4, where the captain is laid up on this table with a pipe that leads directly over her face that has what looks like the kind of material that the killer was using the whole time to put across their face before he put them into their kill trap. And the killer announced to the captain that she had to...
So in order to stop the wax, there was a blade that was underneath her neck her neck was resting on. And this hot wax was above her face. And she, again, had that cloth thing across her face. And in order for the wax to stop, she would have to cut her neck open and sever her spinal cord so that way she could not move anymore. She couldn't walk, but it would stop the wax.
You can't walk away, but you can survive. I like that line. It's very straightforward, but I felt like it was effective.
And then you've seen it too. They showed her like rubbing her neck on that. So she's just got pain coming from her neck. She's got pain coming from her face. That would have been rough. That would have sucked. Amongst
the other deaths, I thought that this one wasn't as hard to look at or hard to watch, but to psychologically put myself in the place of suffocating with wax definitely still made it pretty intense.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, think about the pain. You're not just suffocating, but you're suffocating with hot wax, like melting hot wax, and you're also cutting your neck at the same time to the point of not walking anymore. Imagine how deep you have to cut for that. That's... Oof.
One way or another, traveling down into the depths of the police station, Detective Zeke does find the captain, and for whatever reason decides that it's going to be a fantastic idea for me to put my fingers all up in this wax and melted flesh that's still steaming, to peel it back and try to resuscitate her. Peels the wax and peels the skin off of her face back, and then puts his mouth on her mouth to try to resuscitate her and punches her chest at some last resort to try to save her life, to no avail. And that definitely is what kind of pulled it back up to the grossness, because the peeling of the wax back on the face ended up actually feeling almost more gross than the actual skinning itself, just for a moment.
Post-mortem, too.
Yeah.
If you watch the House of Wax remake, that happens in that movie too, but the person's still alive. Like they're covered in like wax, as in like a statue. And then someone tries to like dig away the wax because they knew that someone was inside, and try to dig away the wax, and they're just literally just digging to like their muscle, like through all their skin and stuff, just pulling all out. It is effective. It's gross.
Yeah, they definitely went balls to the walls with getting you familiar with what our insides look like.
Well, my thing, how did this person set up a whole rig, like a whole hot wax rig and this blade and table in the police station in the safe room? By the way, she's locked in the safe room too, so no one can get into her right away, like go into the room right away. Because when she gets locked in there, as soon as she gets in there, she gets locked in there. And for some reason, she's shooting. First she doesn't even look at like the killer anymore. Like she sees him, turns around and tries to leave, and takes her eyes off of him. And then it gets all smoky and stuff in there. And then all of a sudden, she just starts shooting everything.
Yeah. There were 2 points about this. That being one of them, that she went from being like the top-notch actor in the film to filling in the ranks with everyone else. She, I don't know if people just do this when they're scared, but I did not understand why she just picked up that phone and just started saying hello like someone was supposed to be there. She just picked up the phone and was, hello, 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 hangs it up, and then just starts, like you said, just starts like shooting. Like she knows that she can't see anything, so she's just wasting rounds. And it was once again all for nothing. It was a creepy scene, but the things that were happening in the scene was very corny.
Yep. That's the part that sucked, because that took me out of it too. Because I'm like, you could have put up a better fight, or at least got one shot at this person. I would have been okay. Like I think it would have been better if she would have been able to shoot this person in like at least the chest, and it be like this person has a bulletproof vest on or something, you know what I mean? And then that's when they get her or whatever. But she just acted so dumb. They made her look dumb.
Yep. And I thought that this was going to be the first time in the film where there was more of a physical altercation with the killer. You know what I mean? This was more, I thought that she was kind of a badass. I thought that she was going to be able to defend herself better. I thought she was going to be given more of an opportunity to defend herself better, but they just made her look, like you said, they made her look dumb, and they didn't do the part justice.
They acted like she didn't even know how to, like she wasn't even a cop. Like she wasn't even a detective. Like she had no training.
And now at this point, things kind of get even more ridiculous, because all of this stuff is happening to the same people in the same station that are on the same case, because the case got so big that apparently everybody in the whole station just has to team up together to do it, which I get that. But now, after all this stress and all this shit is happening, now one of the cops are trying to say, hey, haven't seen your dad in a while, because we haven't, because the last time we saw him was forever ago when he just decides to walk into this random building.
I was just going to mention that too.
So they try to point the finger at Dad, and I didn't believe it at any point. At no point at all did I think that it was going to have anything to do with him. There was no reason to suspect that. Not that there always has to be a reason to suspect anyone, but I just thought that would have been... I thought that it would have been too silly for them and too far-fetched for them to just say, oh, it was the dad this whole time, especially for how little you've seen him and how little you got out of him.
Exactly.
So I wasn't buying that.
So Chris goes to the church again, and when he tries to leave, as soon as he opens the door to leave, we got Pigman. He's right there, right in his face, grabs him. That's a nice, cool little jump scare. And
yeah, because that led me to finally have the conclusion. I was like, yep, there it is. It's getting towards the end of the movie. It's definitely it's definitely his ex-partner.
shortly after Chris gets got, no, it doesn't really get got, but he gets grabbed. Samuel Jackson is also then captured as well by Mr. Piggy.
Isn't that so weird, though? It's like he was gone this whole time, and it was like, I mean, I guess if anyone was going to have more scoop on what would be going on, I would think that it would be him to have more of an inkling of what to do about this, but at no point did it ever make any sense, especially how soon that he knew, to start digging into where specifically to go to start finding this guy's shit. There was all the spirals that almost like made it very obvious as to where to go and where to follow to get to his lair, which seems silly because why would you ever want to make that obvious for anyone to find? And it just seemed like that was something that they decided that they'd make him disappear, and it was the only way that they could pull it together at the end.
I guess because they're trying to like set up Samuel Jackson as like a red herring, but it wasn't effective. They just didn't do it well. They just pretty much just made him disappear from the movie, and then all of a sudden he's there again, and you're like, I still know it's not him, but that's fine.
Disappointing.
So Chris wakes up. It was disappointing. But Chris wakes up in a room where he is handcuffed to a wall and given a saw. And this is very similar to the original Saw film where the two people wake up and they're in the room, but they're handcuffed with around their ankle instead. So I personally think that it seemed very anticlimactic while he was in that situation. Like the flow of it just seemed like he went from like the Saw thing where he's like trying to cut this and that, and then he's like, oh, a bobby pin, look. And he like grabs a bobby pin, and then he gets out like that. And, I was just like, okay. And then I also thought at that point too, the set looked very like a set. It didn't look like a real location. It just seemed too clean, too squared off. I don't know. It was very anticlimactic. But that's when he runs into his old partner, who is now strung up and about to be in this trap that Chris has to help. When Chris gets out of the handcuffs with his bobby pin, he comes across Pete, who is strung up to like the ceiling area, and he's about to get blasted with a whole bunch of shards of glass. And Chris needs to figure out how to get him the hell out of there.
Follow the clue, Chris.
Follow the clue, or so this glass starts flying out of this like machine thing that like cuts up the glass and like it somehow shoots it out at like ridiculous speeds. But I don't understand why Chris didn't just put something directly in front of that hole. Like I think there's like 2 holes or something like that. Like just find something to cover that. Like that garbage can could have went over at least one of those holes somehow.
I thought from the second that he was unable to successfully pick the lock on the first try and it already started shooting out glass. Like he didn't get around to doing it the first time. I don't know why at any point he would have decided to continue on. You know what I mean? At that point, it would have been a waste. Just like every other person who tried to survive, they do all this extra effort, and it ends up being for naught.
And then even the glass, this is where I was actually disappointed in the special effects, because meanwhile, yes, Pete is getting hit by all of this glass, and it does look really gnarly, and it would really suck. But then you have Chris, who is kind of helping. Not helping well enough, but kind of helping. And he has now shards of glass in his skin. Well, Chris goes to pull one of the shards of glass out, and it honestly looked like it was glued to him. Like they didn't show, like there's like no depth or anything. Like I could have easily taken fake glass and just glued it to myself and like pulled it off. And that's what all it looked like. He just like had a piece of like sugar glass stuck to him.
Yep. Yeah. If they were going to go out of their way to get a close up of him pulling that glass out, I would have thought that they would have made sure that it looked a lot better than it did, especially considering the standard and the bar that they set for all the other detail that they put into everybody else's flesh wounds.
And that could have easily been added. Like if him pulling that out, if you would have showed just even a little bit of like a triangular or sharp edge that would have been like kind of bloody deeper into his skin. You could have easily put that in digitally real quick.
Yeah, it definitely, it bothered me a lot that there were glass shards in his face. Not in like I didn't like it, but just it just made me squint a lot. Just to see like glass shards just poking out of his face all over the place.
There is I don't know how, it's funny because I don't think about these movies half the time, but then I think of all these other references, but there's a movie called, I think it's the third one, Return of the Living Dead 3, I believe. And this one girl is slowly becoming a zombie, and the only way that she doesn't make herself hungry is by like giving herself pain. She likes pain. And by the end of it, she is like she's putting like hooks in her face and everything, but she's putting like shards of glass all through her face. And that's what it kind of reminded me of him just walking around with all these shards of glass. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty gross.
A lot of this for me was pretty much like, ooh, brutal. Oh, what the hell? He actually went in the glass. Why would he do that? Obviously, that guy was a total piece of shit. And at that point, it seemed ridiculous to try to continue after even being shot with the first round of glass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he was going to bleed out.
I'm trying to kind of put together, what Detective Zeke's mindset was at that point, but I couldn't really make any sense of it. And pretty much towards the end of that, it was even more obvious than ever that good old Pete wasn't going to be hanging out with us anymore.
Yeah. Pete is now dead. He's bled out. Too much blood loss. So Chris decides to move on, and he's kind of in this. He goes into this like open part of this warehouse, and this is where I do think that the lighting was pretty nice when they have the lights like beaming through the windows, and there's like a nice misty, foggy look to it. Yeah, and it just kind of like hits across. And when he goes in this room, there is somebody standing in there, and who other than his current rookie partner. And I knew that he was alive. That's the thing. I knew that he was the killer. Even with the tattoo thing, I was confused. I was very confused, but at the same time, I kept on I didn't dismiss the fact that he wasn't the killer. So I don't know why, because usually I'm not that good at those kind of things. I'm just like, I don't know who the killer is. I don't know. I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea. But this one, for some reason, I was just like, yeah, it's him.
Damn. I was such an unsuspecting victim to this twist. I'm sure that there's so many people who said that they were expecting it or saw it coming, but I truthfully, throughout the whole film, at no point did I have, and they go through and they kind of show you his motives. Horrible 4 resolution kind of shows like what's happening behind the scenes a lot of the time when, kind of filling in the blanks of some things that didn't totally make sense when you would have liked them to make sense, which I'm glad that that is a nice touch that they did with that whole selection there, was to just kind of piece together some things, even though I'm sure that is a cliche that we have played a part of in our filmography. Now knowing that Detective William is the killer, which was something that, like I said, was not expecting in any way whatsoever. They pieced together all of the things that were happening behind the scenes that we weren't seeing that he was doing on the back end of the story. That helps us now understand how we got to this point and how it could have been him in the first place. It turns out that Will's actual name was the name that he fibbed to Detective Zeke about being his son's name when he was trying to draw this picture or paint this picture for him that he has this family, kind of just being the good, innocent guy between the two of them that has a normal, calm, cool, collected, family-oriented life. And after revealing that was him, things started to make a lot more sense to Detective Zeke now, because even though Detective Zeke did do something about it at the time, all he did to help the boy after his father was shot right in front of him was just bend down at the crack of the door before he closed it and told him to just shush and just be quiet and please don't say anything. And he took it into his own hands to deal with it and just let the boy be on his own. And so it turned out that after all these years, Will worked on becoming a police officer only to become the partner of Detective Zeke's, to sabotage him and the rest of the police department, because he decided at that moment when he was a child that police are corrupt, and he hates police, and all he wants to do is take out the bad cops. And this is where I almost felt super conflicted, because yes, he is a total psycho, and that is completely crazy to want to just, kill people. But at the same time, I completely understand where he's coming from, living in a world where cops are so corrupt and there are so many bad cops. And it doesn't matter how many people that say, but there's good cops, because there's so many bad cops and so many good cops that don't say anything. So they do actually bring in a very relevant and relatable point that kind of fills in with society, with Will's character and reasoning for becoming a serial killer, that makes it complicated and makes you feel very conflicted, even though all of this killing and this brutal deaths is completely psychotic. And I definitely in no way could ever endorse that to any human being, regardless of what they have done or what they will do.
Well, while we're getting this backstory too, while all of this is happening, Chris's dad is now revealed that he is strung up and he has IVs in his arms and everywhere else in his body, and all this blood is just draining out of him into these jars, and he's already lost a lot of blood. What irritates the shit out of me is while they're having all this conversation, while the rookie's trying to get Chris to join the dark side and do this cop murdering thing and get rid of all
these vigilantes killing bad cops.
Yeah, exactly. Come on. First off, how about you ask questions, shoot him down, ask questions later. Just get him into he's already talking for a while, and he's as his dad still. If that was me, I don't give a shit about anything else. I'm getting him down ASAP. That's the first thing that's happening, and then I'll ask questions.
Yeah, I mean, I did like that they brought that up, though, that a lot of cops do run off of the that they do end up kind of filling in the stereotype of shoot first, ask questions later, and in so many different scenarios in our real life. And they keep bringing it back to, it really is a really heavy anti-Blue Lives film, big time. And I'm sure that there are probably a lot of police officers that have seen this movie that it probably made them feel gross and made them feel uncomfortable. And hopefully even though it's just supposed to be this rinky-dinky horror movie, I hope that if this movie does anything, that it brings that point to light. No matter if this is a 1-star on Roku movie, which it was 1 star on Roku.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible.
That there are people that see this that get a healthy message and a strong message out of it, that are showing that, in my opinion, that there does need to be a reform in how our police justice system is in the United States. To continue with the situation at hand, it did seem, I could understand in his perspective having a hard time deciding what exactly to do, but I agree with you completely that he should have made a move on him, because he was completely unarmed as far as we knew. And just because he had one bullet doesn't mean that he needed to use the bullet. He still had the upper hand. And, he was even in his face. He could have knocked his ass out. There's so many other ways that he could have dealt with that, rather than just because you had one bullet to use doesn't mean that there wasn't still something you could do to win the whole situation over.
So the reason why Sam is even in the place that he's at now, being strung up like that, is because he created the Article 8, which allowed police to, pretty much take down, murder anybody they thought was bad. And the rookie, William Shank, that's one of the reasons. He is one of the reasons why he decided to even get into the force, to start doing all of this, to really start with, really get at him, really get at Sam. Other than what's his name at the church, who really was the reason why his dad's dead, Pete, reason why his dad's dead.
I had a quick moment of personal confliction because I was like, oh, geez, it kind of makes sense now because, Pete did mention before that they were different times. Those were different times, and those, the way that things were going on, and, they didn't make sense to us yet. But it turned out that the reason why Pete was even doing that in the first place was because he was working under the captain's Article 8. But obviously that also made me remember that just because Article 8 existed didn't mean that he needed to enforce it. So at the end of the day, I was still definitely saying that it's Pete's fault why Will's dad, not Will's dad, was dead. So all in all, the real villain of this movie is Detective Zeke's dad.
Which he soon gets shot down finally by Chris. And he gets to the ground and he's so weak. He can barely talk, barely move. And he did okay with that performance. But then there was moments where he seemed stronger. And I'm like, it went back and forth for me for that performance. But it seems like Shank is getting into Chris's head a little bit about doing this or not. And pretty soon the backup shows up and comes into the room. And at this point, they're fighting, right?
Yeah, he goes over to console his dad when his dad falls on the ground, and that's when Will finds this the perfect moment to go over to the elevator, just like he wanted. So he had it set up so that when they would buzz through the safe, that it would trip a wire. That's when they had Samuel L. Jackson's character get pulled up just like a puppet. Just like the puppet was in the videos that he was using. And just like in the video that he shared with them, has him lift up the gun that is stuck to his hand, just like in that puppet video, and shoots all of the cops. Well, pulls the gun up.
No, he doesn't shoot.
Has him pull
the
up.
Cops shoot him.
Yeah, has him pull up the gun. And so because he pulls up the gun, that makes all the cops think that they're in a dangerous situation that gives them the right to shoot, and he gets blasted away, gets totally opened up on, and Detective Zeke has to watch his father get completely annihilated by this team because of the trap that he was inevitably set up in, thanks to Will.
And he actually, that's the one performance that I kind of remember more by Chris Rock that I thought was okay, where he felt helpless and he was like screaming for like, no, please don't kind of situation, but also don't shoot me.
Yeah,
I like that part of his performance.
That was intense.
During all of this, when this is kind of happening at the beginning, when they're explaining what all happened and the connections between them all, I think that's around the time that we get the original Saw theme music that kind of followed in towards the end, and I liked that. That was a nice like wraparound from the originals. So that was cool. So after Samuel Jackson got all shot up by all the cops because of the, him being puppeteered by this, contraption with the shotgun connected to him. And Chris Rock is on the ground trying not to get shot. And meanwhile, Detective Shank is on the elevator, which goes down slowly, descends down. And while the doors are closing, all we see is Chris Rock just like screaming no, reaching towards like, as in they didn't want him to get away. And then it's pretty much the end of the movie. How did you feel about it?
The one thing I wasn't sure if you were going to say or not that I noticed is just as the elevator door was completely closing, Will looks at Detective Zeke and does just to him as he did when he was a small boy after his father got shot, and told him to shush. And I thought that was a nice way to wrap that up. I thought that made me feel okay about the ending because I felt like what goes around comes around right at that moment right there. That's where I felt like that was a perfectly placed thing to make at least the movie wrap up full circle.
Yeah, I think the ending was surprisingly a little anticlimactic for me anyway. I just thought it was just kind of like, it seemed fast, it seemed abrupt, and I'm just like, but I didn't notice this. I like that a little bit, like the shushing thing. I didn't realize that at first. I seen him do it. I just didn't put two and two together. But now that you say that, that's actually adds a little bit more. I don't know. It makes me like it a little bit more. Yeah. But it's still, I think it's a little, still, I think it was a little anticlimactic and just a little like abrupt ending.
Without that, it wouldn't have felt like everything got pulled together. Like by the time that it got to there, the whole reason why all this was happening in the first place ended up making, like, it took the whole movie, but everything kind of made sense as to why it was happening. And he got his payback, and he got to throw that one little last fuck you in his face before he disappeared before the credits roll.
And then who knows what the sequels could bring, if there is sequels.
I sure hope not. And if there is, I don't think that we'll watch it. Or no, I don't think that we'll review it.
That's a better, yeah, we'll probably watch, just not maybe review. Yeah, this one was a hard one to get through. I just felt even just talking about it, I'm just like, ugh. This one was just not, I usually don't feel like that towards movies, but ugh.
Based on this conversation and how the movie was and the notes that I was even managing to scramble together out of it, just kind of seemed like the only reason why I was putting this much effort into it was because we're doing a review on it. Otherwise, I don't think that I would have given two shits about this movie or even batted an eye at it. And I probably wouldn't have watched it to its completion either.
See, I usually will always finish a movie when I start it, especially if I have the time. But yeah, I mean, this film, it looked cheap, except for the gore. Honestly, if you're in it for the traps and the gore, there isn't a whole bunch of traps, but there's still traps. And the ones that are there, they're good. And the gore is just fantastic. Other than that, the movie just sucks, in my opinion. I just don't really care for it.
Because of Chris Rock's acting not gluing the film together, I would have gotten at least to the point where he was bitching at the police department and getting put with that partner, and that's probably where I would have gave up, and then I would have fast forwarded to the killing, gory moments of the film and just watched those parts, and honestly, that probably would have been the end of it.
I mean, there's really not much to hold you into it, And like I said, and it sucks that I had a really good idea that it was going to be his partner still. So I'm like, yeah, I was a little confused on who could be 100%. But even after I knew that he was dead, I just, like I said, I had this feeling, just the way they have it set up. And everything, like I said, everything just looks like a set. It just looked cheap. It just looked, I don't know.
Did you at least enjoy the reason why it ended up being the Detective William? Like his explanation as to why all of this was happening and why he chose to be the Jigsaw knockoff guy?
I mean, it didn't make me go, oh my God, that's so revolutionary. I'm just like, okay, a family member died, and you're trying to collect, payback and avenge his death and everything like that. Like, it's been done. So I wasn't like, oh, this is so cool. It was just like, all right, makes sense, but okay.
Yes, exactly. Makes sense, but exactly.
Honestly, I really don't have. It sucks that I did watch this a few days ago, so I'm not it's not as fresh for me as it is you. So I don't remember all of it. Like, I try to write down a lot of notes, and I did write down a lot of notes, but even that, it all starts to smush together, and the only thing that sticks out to me are those traps, and that's it.
All right. Well, with getting a few of those feelings off your chest there, hit me with your final conclusion and your ratings on Spiral.
My final conclusion is I don't necessarily need to watch this again. I could see me showing people the traps, and trying to figure out what traps would be their favorite or whatever. Just let them see the traps and everything like that. Like, other than that, I don't think that this film is necessarily worth watching. It doesn't do anything for the past stories. It doesn't do much for the new stories. So I think I'm good. I don't need to watch this one again. If it wasn't for the gore, it would get one empty popcorn bucket. But because of the gore being so good, I will give it a 2 empty popcorn buckets. And that's still stretching it it's giving it a lot of credit.
Yeah. My final conclusions on this, when I was first done watching the film, and you could kind of hear it in my voice at the beginning when I was talking about it, was you could tell that I was pretty okay with the film. I thought, at the very least, without hearing anything that you had to say or not talking about any of it, I just thought that it was a mediocre film that happened to have some nice ass gore and some pretty good camera shots in it. But even then, after talking through this and hacking a few things apart, hearing your opinion, rethinking and hearing about some of the things that I had already thought myself, I don't think that the kill moments or the gore or the extra effects that they took the time into doing to make it extra gross and gory made it worth having this film exist. I don't think that it helped anything. I don't think that it benefited to the series. I don't think that it belonged. Even though I have not heard anything else, I can see why some people would think that after this film, that they kind of just want a fresh start with Saw. Like, they just feel like this is the last taste that people are going to have in their mouths about the Saw series, and they just kind of want to cleanse it and start fresh because they don't want people remembering the last thing that they thought of when they thought of Saw, which is Spiral. So at the end of the day here, I definitely am not happy about the film or how it ended up being. There are definitely some elements that I liked about it, or some parts of the story that I thought they managed to make effective of what they thought of. But overall, it didn't tie together and come together the way that it needed to, due to maybe laziness and definitely bad acting, which is unfortunate coming from some bigger names that I was looking forward to seeing do really well and kind of fit their way into the horror genre. But honestly, I think unless they find themselves in a better position with a better script and a better plot, they should probably stay out and stick to what they're doing best, because they're not making a good name and not adding to their resume very well. So getting to my rating then, I think that at the beginning of this, I was willing to give it the same rating that I gave Army of the Dead, which was 3 empty popcorn buckets. But because of this conversation that we had, it very easily bumped it down to what my final rating is, as 2 empty popcorn buckets. And that is mostly because I already didn't feel the greatest about it and was still okay with giving it a 3 because of elements. And, I think that it's funny that we both landed on the same rating 2 times, but that is where I'm at. I think that it's definitely, if it wasn't for the few things that made it stand out and made it kind of visually and mentally appealing for very short periods of time, it would be a complete and total 1 empty popcorn bucket.
I agree. So what was your favorite trap?
While watching the movie, it felt like there was a lot of trap deaths, but I guess since you had mentioned it, there could have been more, and there apparently have been more in the past in other films. So I think that my favorite one has to be the one with the finger pulling and the electric, the potential electrocution by water.
Yeah, I have to say that's probably my favorite one, or at least one that
The dramatic stretching of the skin and the fingers getting pulled out. That was a lot. That was a lot to take in.
That was hard.
That went on for a while, especially because they had that extra intensity that they added to setting it up, letting you breathe, and then bringing it back. Definitely also helped hype it up to be, how great it already kind of was as a kill, to be more than it was to begin with. I don't think that it's a great kill, but a great kill for if the only things that if the only things that I have to compare it to are the other ones.
Yeah, as far as the lead up to it is nice, but then the electrocution was a cop out, easy death afterwards. Yeah, the other ones do it better, but the gore, like I said, is what really they did very well in this one compared to even all the other ones. So now with all of that being said, and now that we have our empty popcorn buckets and our feelings out, what movie out of the two that we've reviewed so far between Army of the Dead and Spiral, which one do you prefer more?
Definitely Army of the Dead. Big time. I was way more entertained by Army of the Dead. I would have rather have sat around for 2.5 hours and watched that movie over sitting around an hour and a half and watching Spiral any day.
And you know what? You couldn't have said it better. That's honestly my words. For real. And don't get me wrong, Army of the Dead wasn't perfect either, as we mentioned in our last podcast, but it's better than Spiral. And I just can't wait to get a film that we can just be like, yes, this movie is amazing. I want one. I need one.
And we're never going to be expecting it until after we watch it. And then we're going to be all goopy and giddy talking about it. I know it's going to happen, but we also have to remember we're playing with new films, and there's a lot of new films that get thrown out that are definitely, they look good, they sound good, might even have the best soundtrack, but there's some serious qualities that a lot of newer films are missing that keep them from being great and rememberable and stand the test of time.
Amen.
So Dillon, let me ask you a little something to wrap up this episode number 2, which is crazy to say because never in my life did I think there'd be an episode 1, but we've already moved to episode 2 and now soon to episode 3. Do you have anything coming up? Do you have anything going on, anything you're working on, or anything new that you would like to discuss or that you would like to just bring up?
No, not much. Like I said, almost for the next few shows, all I'm going to be able to really talk about is our short that we film because it takes so long to make them, and I've been working so slow on it. Today, last time we talked, I was organizing from, just kind of organizing a little bit. Today, I organized even more and kind of separated inside shots from exterior to interior shots, and then separated from parts of the house inside or the outside with the garage and stuff like that, and kind of separated everything so that way when I am ready to edit, which this is pretty much going to be the next step, is starting to cut this, it'll be so much smoother and easier for me because the way we shot, we were so out of order that it was so confusing. It was so overwhelming looking at that footage. But now that I have it organized and put into places that I needed it to be, it's going to be so much faster and easier for me to do.
Nice. Organizational skills. So now that you're looking over the footage and actually getting your eyes on it, did you happen to take a second to notice how you felt about how a lot of those shots were looking, or were you just too busy sifting through
I'm too busy sifting through. I looked through it a little bit, but it just, especially because it's not cropped to how we filmed it. It's, full screen right now, and we recorded it in widescreen. But, for the most part, yeah. I think it's going to be great. I can't wait. I can't wait till it's pieced together and see how well we matched our lighting from, the day difference or when we went from the inside to the outside a bunch of times and things like that. Like, I'm just curious because we did a lot of light moves. Like, this is probably the most light moves we've ever made for any of our shorts or any film.
Yeah. Yeah. And surprisingly, a lot of it turned out better than what I think either of us were expecting. And definitely looking forward to hearing any more updates that you have on what you've worked on next time around.
I'll keep them coming. So how about you? What's your personal stuff going on?
I just managed to work my way through editing our first episode, which was definitely a hefty one. And it turns out somehow, which I'm completely perplexed about, is this recording ended up being just as long, literally pretty much exactly just as long as that one. So the only difference is there's going to be a lot more hacking and slashing and cutting out of this one than there was in that one, because there was actually more content to be going over. Other than that, and getting through working on this podcast and coming up with ideas and working on notes and putting all these pieces together and working on my stream that I mentioned at the top of the show, not too much. Just hanging out, just getting this done. Working on moving into the music stuff, working on getting into my streaming stuff, working on this fantastic podcast.
Oh, man, I love it. So is there any recent and upcoming films for June?
Yeah, there were just a couple that we didn't mention on the last episode that is coming up this month that I just wanted to blow through real quick. We have Infinite, we have The Misfits, we have False Positive, and we have F9. F9 would be another installment to the Fast and the Furious series. Who knows what this one's going to be like or how well received it's going to be. False Positive is a new horror movie that looks like it is revolved around some sort of maybe demonic pregnancy. I'm not sure. The Misfits, which looks like another Get the Gang Together movie with Pierce Brosnan. And Infinite is leaded by Mark Wahlberg, and I feel like I haven't heard his name pop up in a while. So those are all the things, all the extra movies that we didn't mention before that are coming up your way this June.
Well, that sounds great. I'm excited, especially for the Fast 9, because I'm a fan of those movies. And if any of you guys are a fan of any of the other films or interested in seeing any of the other films, check them out. And when you're checking them out, make sure you get some popcorn. But remember,
Don't spill the popcorn!
do you remember those theater like commercials before a theater? Or like, you know, a movie screening, and like they show like the Coke and the ice going into the glass or the popcorn popping. It makes me want, like, I have that in my hand and I want to go and buy more. Coke. That's how good they make it sound.
Did you notice in the spoiler music that I threw in an effect of your voice saying spoiler?
Oh, no.
You didn't hear that?
No, I'll have to listen to it again.
Here's a potential teaser. I don't know that reference. I can't feel my throat anymore. Delta 8 has destroyed me.
I can't feel my throat when I'm with you, but I love it. Oh my God, I didn't even think about it after. Okay. They better bring her back as a robot zombie.
A robot zombie.
Does not compute.
You hear that, Snyder? You hear that, Zack Snyder? We need a 6-hour Zack Snyder cut of robot zombies.
Oh my God. It'll be like Robot Chicken, though. I'm ready to not spill the popcorn.
Yeah, we're going to try not to. But I guess ironically, in every episode, we're going to end up spilling the popcorn. We spill the popcorn in every episode. There's that funny, it's like we're trying to teach other people not to make the same mistake that we are. Mostly so that we hold the movie review market and nobody else takes it from us.
We own this. This is ours.
We'll hold the burden of spilling the popcorn because no one else should have to do that.
I would hate people watching me. Don't watch me. Don't watch me sleep.
This thing hits for a long time.
Oh my God, I'd be coughing so much.
Okay. I'm peaking big time, so let me just adjust now while I'm ahead of the game. Peaking! Hey, movie munchers. Don't spill. Spill. Spill.
Spill.
Shut up. Spill the popcorn.
I was getting nervous. I didn't know what we were spilling. Just waiting. It's just don't spill. Spill.
All right. That's funny.
Okay.
All right, my friend, let's kick this baby off.
Okay.
In a second.
Oh my God. How do you think? I'm here. I'm here thinking it. Like, shut up, Joe. Shut up. I'm trying to say something. Oh, yeah. You'll be there trying to, like, edit and click away, and pretty soon you'll hear somebody.
Help. Ooh, not right now.
I'm busy. Leave me the fuck alone.
Spook me later. Go back to, what is that? Go back through the door, back to, where are they from in Monsters, Inc.? Where's that place that they go? Monstertopia? Or
I don't know. I love that movie, but I don't remember.
I'm going to tell that damn ghost to go back through the door and come back another time because I ain't got no time for that. Mike Legowski. Mike Legowski.
That was actually, that's
Shit.
impressive. That Mike
Legowski.
Yeah, you got that smoker voice going with that receptionist lady there.
Hey, sweetheart, would you please go down to the supermarket and get my Virginia Slims?
And a pack of popsicles.
Popsicles. It'll soothe my stoma.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, man. So that's cool about the whole spooky haunted house stuff going on there.
Oh, happy Pride Month, everyone.